Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and catch up and see how everybody's doing in the community. It's always good to see everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I just walked in the house like not 10 minutes ago from a photo walk I went to this morning, and it was actually just me and one other person today uh, with the photo club. I had not many people sign up because we went yesterday and we had a lot of people show up. But okay, thank you, Marco, for the audio video checkup, and also Jeff, thank you so much. And yeah, I had a couple of technical issues. Every time I opened up OBS, it just would crash. So I reboot the computer twice, and then now it's working. So hopefully it'll stay up. I don't know why it was crashing, but I switched over to a little bit wider angle lens, particularly for today. So you can see my big fat belly, and but more or less, I wanted to have a little wider angle so you could see the cameras that I might talk about today. I was hoping I'd get back sooner so that I could prep a little bit for the topic today, because I just decided on it late last night what I wanted to talk about today. Because in the last weekend, I had an opportunity to buy the new Leica Deluxe 8, which everyone knows is basically the Panasonic LX100 Mark II, which is I still have on loan here from David. I don't know if David's in the stream today or not, but it's a compact little camera with a I think 24 to 75 zoom range, relatively fast lens, f1.7 to 2.8 variable aperture, and it has everything you could want in a camera. Lots of physical controls, the aperture ring, exposure comp, and then the mode dial, or not mode dial, but all the different modes: program, aperture, shutter, manual, hot shoe, EVF. I mean, this camera really has it all, but it hasn't been updated in 6 years. And to some extent, the new Leica Deluxe 8 is a very, very minor update to this camera, primarily in the EVF and the back screen. There, now we have a nice OLED display for the EVF, and it's a little bit larger magnification and a little higher res on the back screen. And supposedly the autofocus is better now. It's still contrast detect, but some of the things I've seen say that the autofocus is better. But the lens and the sensor are the same. The processing, I don't know if that's changed. From what I can see, I don't really see any differences in the color science or anything like that. But it's extremely difficult to tell without looking at two pictures from different, from the same picture from the different cameras at the same time. But even if it is different now, uh, what's been reported is that it's not a Leica. It doesn't have the Leica colors, which makes sense because it's essentially Panasonic DNA. Uh, and unless they change the sensor designed specifically from Leica, uh, and the processing of that sensor, then really there's not going to be much difference. Any differences would be purely software driven, which you can do in post processing yourself anyway. Oh, David Tellett is here. So, yeah, I brought this with me and the XZ2 yesterday. I thought you were going to show up there, but I wanted to give these back to you. Not because I want to give them back. I love these cameras. I just I just feel bad. I've had them for a couple of months now, and I just feel a little bit guilty using your cameras. But I took it out this morning. I haven't even taken the memory card out yet. I went to Great Falls. Hopefully, I got some good pictures today. Nothing I haven't done like 100 times before, but every time I go, I try to do my best and get the best image that I can. I might have a couple of new perspectives, but uh, and I'll share those on my Flickr page and Instagram later today. So if you guys follow me on those platforms, you'll see some waterfalls and landscape type photography today from 3 different cameras. I took the LX100 Mark II. I took the Olympus Pen F with the 17mm f1.8, and then I took the Sony A7R5 with a 35mm f1.4 manual focus lens, which I'm supposed to be reviewing here soon. I don't know when the launch date is, but it's under wraps for now. But so that's why I chose the 17mm on this, and so I could match images. So I wanted to compare it with this, but essentially, you know, since last week I was looking at that, and I just let it sit on my shopping cart, and then they were all sold out by the time the last time I looked at it, which is fine. I kind of regret not picking one up because it seems like I won't lose money on it because they're hard to get and they're charging a boatload for them, just like the X106 that came out. They're just charging way over retail for these cameras now, if you can get one at all. But ultimately, it's just a camera, right? I'm not buying these as investments. So just because the price went up after I missed my opportunity, it doesn't bother me too much. Now, if I were to buy a stock and then sell it, then the price goes up after I sell it, I'd be really pissed. Trust me, I've been there a few times, man, and nothing makes you more crazy than when the stock price goes up after you sell it. But essentially, it really had me thinking, if I had that camera, would that be my new everyday camera, say, over my Olympus Pen F? Because ultimately, this is a bigger, heavier camera. It's limited to whatever lens you put on it. And if you were to try to put something even close to what is available on, these little like this compact, it would be huge. It would be huge. And I get it. This is being cropped in a little bit, but not that much. Yeah. I'm really getting the same image quality from that little Panasonic as I am from any of my other Micro Four Thirds cameras. So it just got me thinking, what really would be an everyday camera if I were to uh, carry only one camera? And up until last week, when I really started gassing for that Leica, I always thought it was my Pen F. I take the Pen F, throw the kit lens on it, and this is my everyday camera because it'll do everything. But what I found was that having the very fast lens on this little compact, and it is smaller and lighter, which is kind of a bonus, and the battery life is reasonable. Like I took it out today for a couple of hours. Let's see what the battery life is at. I'm still showing full charge, and I have well, I only took 52 images, but anyway, I was very selective today. What was I going to say? But yeah, the fast lens on this, the f1.7 to 2.8, makes a world of difference, especially when you start to shoot indoors. Like a lot of times we go to uh, eat breakfast at the IHOP or Silver Diner, whatever, and lighting indoors is not great. And having a faster lens so you can keep your ISO down low and keep your shutter speeds up enough for people is a big deal. Like I posted an image on my community tab here on YouTube showing the Pen F with a kit lens and that camera taking the same picture, and I was like at ISO 20,000 on the Pen F, and I forget what I was on. I think I was like 6,400 on the Lumix, whatever it was. It was a lot lower, right? More than 2 stops lower in ISO, and the noise difference in the raw image was huge. And that's that got me thinking. An everyday camera really, it, there's a lot of qualities you got to look at, right? Portability, like you need to be able to carry it with you everywhere. To be an everyday camera, you don't want to be carrying, a backpack with you every day, right? You just want something kind of portable, maybe keep in the glove box when you go out. It's got to be able to deliver decent image quality, right? Um, because otherwise, we could just shoot with our cell phone. That could be the everyday camera. I mean, I hate shooting with my cell phone for other than very basic utility type needs, like I take pictures of receipts and business cards, things like that. But I'm not going to use it for like any real photography. And you want to have some. I think a zoom lens is really important as part of an everyday camera because a lot of times when you go out, you have your camera with you. It's very impromptu, right? It's very random what you might get get the feeling to take a picture of. So 24 to 70 in that range uh, is perfectly fine for an everyday camera. And the options with the Pen F is basically the kit lens. 14 to 42 kit lens, and that's perfectly fine. It's nice as well. I got the 17, but the kit lens really. Here's the zooming kit lens on my EM5 Mark II. With I got a lens hood on here. Let me take that off. But you can see this is very, very compact. You can put this in the glove box and take it out, and you power it on, and then the lens comes out a little bit, just like on the other one. So that's a perfect everyday lens, the kit lens, and the kit lens. Believe me, whether it's this one or the 12 to 32 from Panasonic or the 14 to 42 manual zoom from Olympus, they're all very, very sharp lenses. They're not pin sharp like a pro lens, but they are more than sharp enough for 99% of what you want to take pictures of, and optically overall are very good lenses. Um, so we've kind of hit, the key things that I look for in an everyday camera. And then you might want to look at how easy is it to use. So for example, the Sony ZV-1, right? That's the little RX100. We could even talk about the RX100 for that matter. But specifically the ZV-1, there's no EVF on it. EVF, I think, viewfinder is very important for photography, particularly if your eyes are dying like mine. But there's no EVF on the ZF1, and that may or may not be a deal breaker. It's I'm kind of on the fence about that. Like if I anyway, but that camera has, I think, like a 24 to 70 very fast lens. It's like a 1.8 to 2.8. It's very similar to the LX100. Pocketable. That camera is actually pocketable, and it uses a 1-inch sensor, which in good light you're going to be perfectly fine. Uh, and even in a restaurant, because it has such a fast lens, you're going to keep your ISOs relatively low. So you're not going to really have any problems. So it's really a great alternative on paper, but in practice, it's very limited. The buttons, there's not many buttons or dials on it, and it would just be a very point and shoot kind of camera. Now, a point and shoot camera has their place, but I wouldn't consider a point and shoot an everyday camera. Point and shoots are just kind of for fun, not don't take anything seriously. But for an enthusiast photographer, you really want to have, I think, a very tactile experience, very good controls on your camera, so it's very easy to use and do what you want it to do very easily. With the ZV-1, you'd have to dive into the menus a lot of times to get the camera into the settings or features that you want to use to do particular types of shots. Because that was on my short list too, but then when I really looked at it, I was like, man, I don't know if I would enjoy using this as a camera. It's probably great for vlogging because you just push the red button to record and you're good. But as a camera, I don't think I would enjoy it as much as I do any of my other legit cameras, right? Here with Olympus and this Panasonic. Um, so yeah, I think ease of use is very important. Tactile experience, physical controls in your everyday camera is very important. Uh, Otherwise, it's just a point and shoot, right? It's not a camera. It's a point and shoot. Point and shoots are cameras, but they're just a little bit better than, say, using a cell phone, because at least you have a legit shutter button, right? But yeah, I don't know. And feel free to leave comments here as I'm talking if you agree or disagree with anything I'm saying. But so far, these are the things I think about for everyday cameras. Um, you know, weatherproofing is kind of optional for me, but I know a lot of people that's going to be a requirement. So that's going to limit your selection of cameras. That would definitely rule out, say, this LX series or even the Leica Deluxe series. It'd rule out even the Pen F, my beloved Pen F here. But it would not rule out, say, an EM5 or an OM5, right? The CM5. I mean, look at this. I mean, this is a great everyday camera here, weather sealed. Not this particular lens. What lens would I put on here? I'd have to put on a pro lens like the 12 to 45, something like that. 12 to 45 is not that big actually. So I would pair this with a 12 to 45. So I think that's the kit lens here in the US is the OM5 with a 12 to 45 Pro. It's a perfect everyday camera because it does everything, very tactile, and it's kind of cool looking. And oh, by the way, I got the leather half case for this, and I don't know if you guys follow me on my community tab here on YouTube, but I do post deals that I get time to time, and there was a deal on this, like $16 for, it's not real leather, but $16 for a half case, and it's really nice. It just really makes this camera just, I feel, just even more vintage in a way. It just gives me more nostalgic vibes, and it makes it more enjoyable to use, in my opinion. Uh, but yeah, if you need weather sealing, that's gonna that's gonna limit your choices. But there are still options. Like I said, the EM5 series. There's probably others, but this is the one that comes to mind first. Uh, and the only compromise with these everyday cameras, typically because they are smaller, portable, is going to be battery life. So you really want to make sure you carry spares so you can kind of rest easy. Like for me today, I went out for a couple hours. I took about 50 some pictures, and basically, I didn't have any problem with battery. I brought spares just in case, but you know, something like the ZV-1, and another camera I looked at was the RX1. I'm sorry, the one RX or the RX1R, the full frame fixed lens 35 millimeter camera from Sony. It's very compact. Uh, it's selling for like $2,000 used, in near mint condition. But I thought that would be a contender for an everyday camera, but it's not. Now I'll get into that. Um, and then of course it has to be fairly competent with video, just at least be able to record 1080p and decently. Um, and I think that's it. And then price, okay? Your everyday camera should not be expensive. The Deluxe 8 is an expensive boutique everyday camera for the wealthy. I and I'm not wealthy. I just have really bad gas. I have really good credit. So these things are not good. I fortunately it sold out because subconsciously I knew I shouldn't buy that camera, so I let it sell out. I just let it sit in my cart until I couldn't buy it anymore. But I put it in my shopping cart where all I had to do was buy it now. to kind of cure my gas, like, or temper my feeling for gas, because I knew I was just one click away from buying it. Because my credit card information, everything's already in there. I just had to do click, buy it, right? Uh, so that kind of tempered my gas a little bit. But trust me, there was times when I clicked that buy now button and I let it sit there too long that I had to refresh the browser because it gave me some error, and then that stopped me there. And I was like, okay, good. I'm glad that didn't work. I almost bought it. Uh, so these are the things. So for me, I think honestly, I'm taking a very, very hard look at an LX100 Mark II. Maybe even the Deluxe 7, right? The model before the Deluxe 8, because I can get one of those for about $500 more than this, and it's purely cosmetic with a red dot. That's the only difference between the two. But these are boutique cameras. These are not cameras that you're buying because they're good value for the money. There are much, much better cameras that are good value for the money. But when it comes to what is a good everyday camera, this is very, very hard to beat. Because I took this out today to Great Falls, and I've taken it out many times before, and it does everything I asked it to do, and it does it well. The fast lens allows me to take it inside of the hotels and restaurants, indoors basically, and get decent image quality without having to crank the ISO up. Uh, and the only limitation to this camera really is, you can't put like a telephoto lens on it. But at that point, telephoto lenses, you're talking about, that's not an everyday camera. An everyday camera is going to be in that 24 to 70 range. Even a fixed lens camera like the X100V is a 28 or 35, whatever it is. X100V, the RX1R from Sony, the the RX100s from Sony all have sort of that standard zoom range. I think the newer RX100s go from 28 or 24 to 200, but then you're like at f2.8 to f5.6 or something. You're at a much higher aperture, which would kind of rule it out for me as an everyday camera. Uh, but then again, maybe not, right? It just depends on what you're willing to compromise in your everyday camera. Now, it doesn't have to be pocketable like a GR3. GR3, RX100. I don't think an everyday camera has to be pocketable, but just small enough so it doesn't get in the way of your everyday activities that you're doing, right? And I don't know, I'm giving this a hard look, very, very hard look of getting one of these or Deluxe 8, even though a Deluxe 8 is $1,500. I'm sorry, Deluxe 7. The Deluxe 8 is now 2 or 3,000, right? Because they're sold out everywhere. I knew I should have bought it, but this I can get for about 800 to 900, right in that range for one in good shape. I've seen them selling for over 1,000. I'm not doing that, but I might pay $800 or $900 for something like this because, again, they're better cameras for this money. But is there a better everyday camera? That is the question I pose to you today. What could possibly beat this as an everyday camera? Now, it doesn't have weather sealing, so that could be the deal breaker right there. Then you go to an OM5 with either a kit lens, like a 14 to 42. I'm sorry, you can't do that. A 12 to 45 kit lens, 12 to 45 Pro f4. Relatively small lens for what it is. Excellent image quality, all the features you could possibly want in a package about this size. If I turn this on, so 12 to 40 Pro is 45 Pro is a little bigger than this kit lens extended, right? Uh, and heavier. It's like 250 grams. This is like half that because the front element, anyway, this, uh, I think if you want weather sealing, I can't think of a better everyday camera than an OM5 or an EM5 Mark III with a 12 to 45 Pro. For me, since I don't need weather sealing, it's going to be either this LX100 or my Pen-F with a 17 1.8, or yeah, this is a 1.8. It's fixed lens, but it's okay. I shot at 17 millimeters all morning. Wasn't worried about it, you know. Uh, all the pictures are still on here. I like I said, I just got back. So I've been jibber jabbering for a while. Those are my thoughts on the everyday camera. I'd like to hear what you guys think. So let me go into chat section. Wow, there's a lot of chat here. Xmeta, just a quick note, there is no upload link on your editing event this time. Use the link. Oh yeah, from the older session. Sorry, I'll fix that. I'll fix that today. Seraphin's here. Eric, good to see you. Hopefully, you said you could go out next weekend. I'm going to be going out to the Balloon and Air Show. It's on our meetup group event. I'm hosting that event this time. It's another 6 a.m. deal. So I have to leave my house around 4:30 in the morning because I'm going to carpool with some people too. Sebastiano, awesome name. I love that. John Thomas, good to see you. Zoltan, Jeff Painter, and Wayne. A lot of familiar names here and faces. So good to see everyone. Zoltan, good afternoon. And Darko's here. And Serge, good to see you, Serge. Serge has really progressed. If you guys are on Flickr, you can go to the Rob Trek community group where you can post your photos and things from Flickr. And so you need a Flickr account to upload your photos, and then you can share them in the community group. But Serge has come so far with his woodland photography, and I'm so impressed by the kind of work you're producing now. I do go in time to time and look at everyone's photos. I'll try and make some time to comment and things on them, but just know that you're making posts in that community. They're not totally in vain because everyone in the community seems to be participating, and I do go in there and look at them time to time. And Marco, good to see you. And Roger Calamati, thank you so much for the recent donation. I appreciate that. I know you sent me an email, but I didn't respond to it, unfortunately, because if I don't respond to it immediately, it gets lost, because so many emails come in, and then I forget to respond. Because a lot of times I'm looking at the emails on my phone, because 99% of them don't need a response right away. And I might flag a couple and then go back to them later. But anyway, I do appreciate your donation. And laid up with a bad back. Oh, no wonder, David. We were wondering why you bailed on us yesterday. I hope you feel better soon. Let's see. And Serge is happy with his old EM6. Nice. And Seraphin says there's a storm in Florida. Nice. We had a good storm last night. Tell you, man. I'm glad I just cleaned my gutters too. I got up on the roof and cleaned them just in time because we had a heck of a rain yesterday. And yeah, see, Surge has exactly the camera I was just talking about as an everyday camera. I've been looking at the 12 to 45 Pro, and I'm kind of torn between that and the Panasonic 12 to 35 f2.8 because there's a full stop difference in light between the two. And that's pretty tempting, but the 12 to 35 is about 50 grams more in weight and slightly bigger, like 4 or 5 millimeters in any direction. So that's giving me a little pause, but it's still smaller than the 12 to 40 Pro because I have the 12 to 40 f2.8. So I'm like, well, you know, the 12 to 40 f2.8 is a lot bigger than the 12 to 45 f4 Pro. And the 12 to 35 is kind of in between. So I'm like, that extra stop of light. But if I'm going to get that, I might as well just use the 12 to 40 that I have already, because it's only a little bigger than, you see what I mean? First world problems. But I'm pretty content with the, like today, I was shooting at f5.6, f8, even f11 sometimes on the Sony, but I was like at f5.6 most of the time and f8 on the kit lens. I don't need the f2.8 or f4 even, but particularly f2.8. I don't really need that unless, and this is why in everyday cameras, you know, this is important in an everyday camera is, you know, you go in and you're having lunch, then you're inside with your friends and family and you want to take pictures. A faster lens is going to give you better image quality. And it's something that I don't know if I would compromise. And it's not like just a little better, it's a lot better. It's like I said, you're talking like you might be at ISO 6400. You get on a kit lens, you're up to ISO 20,000 in a heartbeat. But I'd have to carry a bigger lens, which might be okay. I think the 12 to 45 Pro, it's only 250 grams. It's just small and light enough to be part of an everyday package. And then it meets all the criteria of being weather sealed too, right? With like an EM5 or OM5 body. So, and Kevin says, I'm so glad I got the LX100 as my everyday camera. It's so compact and never have to worry about low light. Yeah, see, Kevin, Kevin, Kevin is seeing the light, pun intended, with these little LX100 cameras. Being at f1.7 or f2, like at 35 millimeters, that's pretty impressive to be able to get that kind of, you know, light into your sensor in such a compact, because, you know, 12 to 45 Pro, man, is like this, right? Compared to this camera. It's going to sit up about this high. Not a 12 to 40, because that's f4. I'm talking like an f2.8 lens. And f2.8 is still not as fast as the 1.7. I mean, it's more than a stop difference still, going from f2.8 to a 1.7. It's like a stop and a half. It's no joke when you get into the higher ISOs, right? But yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I like the Deluxe 8 that they have now. The Deluxe 7, I'm sorry. It's all silver. So it's basically this camera, but with a silver top. I know a lot of Leica people hate that silver. They want all black like this. I like the silver though. Like just like my, it'll be a little smaller version of my Pen F. But then that's holding me back too, right? Because if I get that camera, what's going to happen to the Pen F? It's not, you know, it's going to sit a lot more. And this offers so much more than the LX in terms of handling. It's a little bigger. It's like 5 millimeters wider, but then they stuck a whole bunch of buttons all over this thing, right? You know, I got 5, 6, 7, 8, like 8 buttons on the back, and then I got 3 dials, and then a fourth one here for monochrome or whatever. And then I got a button here on the front, right? Quick button here. So this offers so much more for just an extra 5 millimeters and about 100 grams in weight. And if I'm content with a 17 millimeter, I got all the light gathering I need, and I got a lens hood on this. If I take the lens hood off, because a lot of, you know, people like Robin Wong would never put a lens hood on their camera. This is pretty compact, right? It's not that much difference when you look at these. Ultimately, if I do it like this is where you can see the extra 5 millimeters. of the Pen F. It's just a little bit wider and just a few millimeters taller, right? But it has all kinds of buttons and dials on it. So I think that's a reasonable compromise. But it does feel heavier. It does feel significantly heavier. I mean, it's not heavy as far as cameras go, but it is pretty heavy. It feels substantial in the hands. So that's a good thing, honestly. It doesn't bother me so much. But it's not like carrying the Sony camera or the Fuji, or God forbid I ever buy an S1R. Those are big, heavy butt cameras, right? So Seraphin takes the ZF. Oh yeah, that's a nice camera with a Voigtlander 40. Nice. Or the OM5 with a 17 1.2. Wow, that's a big lens. The 17 1. That's an awesome lens. But I could never bring myself to buy the 1.2 lenses from Olympus, or even Panasonic has one. They're just so big. I couldn't do it. Um, the XZ2, absolutely. So there are a couple of compact, almost point and shoot. These are better than point and shoots, but they're premium compact cameras, like the LX5 that I have, the XZ2. These are two very premium compact cameras, and they take excellent pictures as long as you don't have to crank up the ISO. And this is where they kind of fall down a little bit compared to, the larger sensor type compacts. But if you're just walking around during the day, it's no big deal. But I feel like those are cameras that I take out when I know that I'm not going to be in too many low light situations, right? And by low light, I mean just indoors in the middle of the day, because the light indoors is significantly less than, say, outdoors, right? Or whatever I'm going to be taking indoors is not that important. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking at 1.8 lenses, right? The GX9 at the moment for everyday. Interested in GM5 if I can find one. The GM5 is so tiny and compact that, you're limited to pretty much just using kit lenses on that, or there's a couple of nice pancakes, right? The 20 millimeter 1.7 is perfect, 14 millimeter f2.5, and Olympus has a 17 2.8. These are all great little uh, pancake lenses that would keep something like a GM5 very, very compact and still have very fast lenses. So I was looking at the 14 millimeter 2.5, and I was also looking at the 15 millimeter 1.7. I'm leaning towards the 15 1.7. Even though the 14 2.5 is very attractive, the 15 is only a little bigger. I mean, relatively speaking, it's only a little bigger, and it's giving me much, it's going to be a much higher quality output with respect to gathering more light, so I can use lower ISOs, and also optically it should be superior. Although for probably 90% of the stuff you do with an everyday camera, there's no reason to pick the 15 millimeter for its optics over, say, the 14. The reason I picked the 15 is for the light gathering, the 1.7 versus the 2.5, because that's what, half plus a third. So it's 80% more light going into the 15 millimeter. The GX9, man, I was looking at one of those yesterday. I was like, okay, what can I? And I said, well, I have a Pen F. What is the GX9 really going to offer over the Pen F, other than I think other than a very different design aesthetic, though, although I still like the design. I really like the design of the GX, like the 85 and the GX9. I don't like the GX8, but I like the GX85 and the GX9 because they're a little more compact, streamlined, and extremely well made. I'd say as well made as any camera, including the Pen F, in terms of durability, which is another important factor in an everyday camera. It should be pretty durable, right? Uh, Not sure what I love so much, but the OM5 with the F4 Pros are such an awesome combo. I find grabbing it fun more often than the OM1. I would agree with you 100%. Like I said, because it just meets all the criteria of an everyday camera with virtually no compromises, right? I mean, as an everyday camera, zero compromise that I can think of. Because an everyday camera is not a bird and flight camera, right? That's the OM1 every day, all day. But the OM5, awesome autofocus, awesome image quality, uh, you know, very, very good lenses, the F4s, the F4 Pros from Olympus at reasonable pricing, especially on the used market. You can get like a 12 to 45 F4 Pro for like 400 bucks, mint used. A 45 or 40 to 150 F4 Pro for like 700 brand new right now. I mean, and then you get the camera itself for like $1,000 and you've got very compact, weather sealed, extremely high image quality, and a ton of features. Just unbelievable number of features and customizability. And then of course the vintage look, right? I mean, this is your vintage DSLR type, or not DSLR, but SLR, right? Like the original OM film camera. Very, very vintage, nostalgic, beautiful styling. I love the silver OM5. Trust me, I was looking at that because they had the OM5 with the 12 to 45 Pro for like $13.99, brand new. I didn't pull the trigger because I have an EM5, so really all I need is the lens, the 12 to 45 Pro. But but then I have a kit lens, which is really only a stop slower on the long end and about the same on the short end. So and optically, as an everyday camera, it's good enough to use a kit lens. Uh, but yeah, the OM5 is extremely attractive everyday camera, I think, and also being very capable. Since I've been looking at the OM5 for months now, wanting to pull the trigger as an EDC. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. Uh, it is, it'll do everything, everything. It ticks every single box for an everyday camera. Battery life is very good too, actually. You know, if it's similar to the M5 Mark III, and I don't see why it wouldn't be, but it's going to have better video than the M5 Mark III, and just slightly, right? Uh, not probably nothing you could measure or do a blind test and be able to tell a difference. But I think the OM5 will have better video ultimately, if that's a thing. I didn't talk about video in the everyday camera part, but I think video is, you know, if you just want to capture short 5-10 minute clips here and there with video, um, any modern camera will do fine. Starting with, say, even this on EM5 Mark II, took pretty decent video, uh, but it improved quite a bit, specifically with the EM5 Mark III, OM5, or EM1 Mark III. The video is much better. I don't know, they tweaked something in the algorithm so that the images are, some people say they're over sharpened, but I find them for everyday type stuff perfectly fine, just right. And the color, and, you know, and Olympus colors, OM system colors. It's not that the colors, there's any magic to the colors. What OM system cameras do better than any other camera I've used, and as you know, I've used them all, except for Canon. I haven't used that too. I've had a couple of Canon, but I didn't use them much. But what I'm trying to say is that Olympus white balance algorithm has got to be the best. That thing gets it right every single time. I mean, sure, I could probably dig in my archive and find some where it didn't, but my confidence level is extremely high that when I shoot with the Olympus cameras or OM system cameras, that the white balance is going to be near perfect, straight out of camera, if not perfect already, in any kind of lighting situation. I can't tell you how many times, even with this Lumix, right? This is my biggest problem with the Lumix, uh, is white balancing issues, right? Sometimes it's just too cool. Sometimes this shoots underexposed quite often. It underexposes by a third, two-thirds of a stop. It's a lot of little things that, as I start to use it, I get a feel for and can compensate, and it just becomes second nature. But with the Olympus camera, and this is why I fell in love with it since I got the EM10 Mark II 6 years ago, or however long it's been, is it just became it was very intuitive to me. Even the menu systems I found relatively intuitive, and the colors that came out of it, and I've come to realize is particularly is because the white balance is so good in these cameras that I just fell in love with the system. And of course the image quality has been always been very good, more than good enough for 99% of what you're going to do. You could certainly put my Sony side by side with this camera, and Sony is going to blow it out of the water in testing, right? When you push the cameras to their extremes, you're pushing highlights and shadows, you're pushing ISOs, whatever. Yeah, Micro Four Thirds ain't going to compete. But when you're just out taking pictures, like I said, as an everyday camera, there, there's no difference. And you'll see that. I do this all the time. I put a picture I took with my A7R5 side by side with my OM1 or Pen F or my Fujifilm, and it's extremely hard to tell the difference between the cameras in a blind test. That said, the user experience, something that you cannot do in a blind test, right? When you actually use the camera and handle it, uh, they all have kind of their strengths and weaknesses. Mostly strengths when it comes to OM systems. And I talked about this with Robin Wong a few weeks back in a live stream about a lot of the things that OM system does that makes the cameras just more usable in the real world when it comes to photography. Uh, and off the top of my head, nothing comes to mind because I'm not in that zone right now of looking at settings. But uh, I can tell you when I took the Sony out today because I'm testing this lens. I was struggling. I was struggling. Where did they hide the focus peaking in the menu? I was like, where is it? Oh my God, where did they put that? And why is that separate from, why is the focus peaking, turning that on or off in a separate menu from changing the color of the focus peaking? They're like in two totally different places, if I recall correctly. I was like, okay, I'm in the focus peaking section. Let me select the color, the strength, and what button to assign to it. Things that I can do in the Olympus cameras so easily because they're all right there. But on the Sony, I was like, why? Why is this in a different place? I think it was the focus peaking. It was something today where I spent like 5-10 minutes just trying to get one setting the way I wanted it to. Now, you can't really blame the camera. Every camera has their quirks. And if that's all I shot with, I'd probably be like, it'd be second nature where everything is. But it's not right now. I didn't have that problem when I went to the Olympus. And that's part of the reason I started this channel, is because I was able to easily adapt to this because it worked with my brain. But I know a lot of people it doesn't work, right? This is one of the biggest complaints about the Olympus cameras is their older menu system. So that's, I was able to start making tutorials about the menu system and going through all the different settings because everything clicked for me. But then how do I articulate this in a way that'll click for other people? And that's, you know, kind of my whole channel is based on that, or it has been, right? Okay, but yeah, I'm with you, Saint Joan. Hopefully I got that right. I'm with you. I I I I would highly recommend it, just like Marco said. Marco loves the Stylus 1S. The Stylus 1S, it's a very interesting camera. This is also on loan. Where is it? And I'm putting a new battery in here for you, David, because the battery that was in it when you gave it to me is starting to swell. You know, it's a generic, and it was hard to take in and out. So I chucked that battery and I put a new one in for you that you can keep. Uh, but this has a constant f2.8 aperture from, I think, 28 to 300 millimeters. It also has the Olympus menu system that we all know and love. So you can, if you're used to the Olympus menus now, you'll be able to dive into this very, very quickly. You know, and it has the tilty screen, right? Which is most photographers prefer, including myself. I prefer the tilt for just general photography. And the build quality of this camera, I mean, it's a really nice top metal plate here. I'm pretty sure the bottom plate is metal, and there's some plastic bits in between here and there. Very, very tactile, lots of buttons and dials. And it's essentially an EM10 with a built-in lens that goes, I think, 28 to 200 or 300 at a constant f2.8. However, it uses a smaller sensor, a 1 over 1.7. So it's a little bigger than a half-inch sensor that a lot of cameras have. So it'll give you a little better image quality, particularly in good light. You will notice a slight difference with this camera. Um, and these can be had for $300 or $400, I believe. But what's kind of keeping me from, I was very enthusiastic about this camera when I first started using it, and it takes amazing pictures. But where it kind of falls apart is at the long end of the zoom range. When I'm shooting at 300 millimeters, I really had trouble getting it to focus on the point that I wanted to focus to. So that, not really a deal breaker, but it was a problem for me. I ended up using this mostly in the 28 to 100 range, in the normal range anyway. Once I started going more telephoto, it was a little harder to get it to focus. But the lens is very, very sharp. The images, I think they're 10 or 12 megapixels. I mean, it's more than enough. And you can certainly take great pictures with this every day, all day. And this could be a very good everyday camera. But I think in this day and age, it's a little bit too much compromise for the autofocus on the long end and the low light performance when you want to use this indoors sometimes, right? Because that's what every day is, right? You're doing different things every day. You don't want to pick up a camera and say, well, I'm not going to be able to use this indoors. You want to pick up this everyday camera and say, I can use this anywhere, you know, save for very specialized type shooting like birds in flight, portrait studio photography, you know, all that other stuff. Something like this is almost perfect, but at the price point of $300 or $400, I guess it's not bad. But I think it's worth spending double or triple that to get something that could truly be an everyday camera, right? Could be your only camera ever. This could never be your only camera, in my opinion. If you're a serious enthusiast, um, does gear matter? Ultimately, no, right? I mean, think about all the master photographers. They did far more with far less, right? But I think in this day and age, this is just a little bit long in the tooth now. Uh, just like the XZ2, a little bit long in the tooth to really be truly a modern day everyday camera. Okay. Uh, but yeah, I really love this camera too. I really do. I would happily have this in my collection as well if and would probably use it a lot more if I actually owned it, but uh, I don't. And I don't know if I want to drop, because I'm just not made of money. I don't know if I want to drop $300 or $400 on that when I'm looking at something that would be a little bit more for the modern photographer, right? A little more capable. Yeah, no EVF. That to me is it's a it's more on the deal breaker side than it's not. It wouldn't be a total deal breaker. It would have to the camera would have to make up for it in other ways. I don't think the Z30 makes up enough uh, with the other features that it has that I could say, okay, I can get by with no EVF because it'll do all these other things. It just doesn't, in my opinion. Specifically, the lenses for the Z series cameras are pretty big and very limited for APS-C. That's changing, obviously, right? We're going to get there where it's not a big deal. And you can certainly drop, you know, a 40 millimeter or 28 millimeter, whatever they have. They have some pretty decent compact primes that you could put on there. But that not having an EVF on an APS-C, I feel like you really need one. Um, but if EVF, and I don't know if the Z30 is weather sealed or not, but no IBIS, yeah, image stabilization, that's a big deal. It's not a deal breaker, but it was for me. And this brings me back to the other camera I was looking at, and that was the Sony RX1R Mark II. This camera is tiny, smaller than the Deluxe. It's like this size, maybe even a little smaller than this. Full frame, 42 megapixel, 35 millimeter f2 Zeiss lens. Okay, super high quality lens, fantastic images, dynamic, you know, everything a full frame sensor does. Hybrid autofocus, you know, phase and contrast, so very good autophoto focus. You know, has been pretty much the best at autofocus forever. So it's going to be more than competent than any of the cameras I have here, aside from say my phase detect OM1 and EM5. Uh, those are very good autofocus cameras, but the deal breaker for me on that was two things. Battery life, it uses like a button cell battery, like just this tiny ass battery. I was like, ah, so I'm going to have to carry spares and make sure the one that's in the camera is always charged. Not a total deal breaker, but something strongly to consider is that battery life, you're always going to have to carry spares. So that's a little risky with an everyday camera. Number two, no image stabilization. Now, I get it. F2 lens, I'm going to be able to keep the shutter speed up and I can get by without image stabilization. But, you know, when I was shooting today with my Pen F, and I was getting down the shutter speeds of like 1/60th of a second or slower. I'm not talking like 1, 2, 3 second exposures, right? That's tripod area for me. But when I start getting below 1/60th of a second, I'm definitely in that range where if I didn't have IBIS, my images will be blurry. They're going to have motion blur. I like to be at like 1/125th or 1/250th of a second, even with IBIS, so that I feel very confident that I'm not going to have motion blur, image shake in my, you know, images with IBIS and everything going on. Because with an everyday camera, you're just taking it out, you're taking pictures here, there, and the other thing. People are moving, objects are moving, whatever. You want to be able to freeze that action. You want to have a fast enough shutter speed. And but there's times when your shutter speed is going to get down to a point to where you start to lose a little confidence that that image is going to be tack sharp. Because I can't tell in the field when I'm looking at it on the back of the screen if there's motion blur in that image or not. It could look perfectly good on the back of the screen, then I get home and I'm editing and I'm like, crap, you know, it's blurry. So no image stabilization, sucky battery life. I don't think it had weather sealing. So I was like, oh, man, that's a little bit too much to compromise just to get that stellar image quality when you do get the right, when everything comes together, right? Your battery level is full, you're on a tripod, you got a fast shutter speed, low ISO. When you have the perfect conditions, you will get probably the most amazing images out of that camera that you couldn't do with anything else, even high-end cameras available to you today. But I just felt like it was too much compromise, and that $2,000 price tag, it's a little bit steep to be lacking all of those things. I'd really like to have a little more modern autofocusing, a little bit better battery life, a decent sized battery, and weather sealing, $2,000 price tag, right? Weather sealing and image stabilization. There's just too many so that's another camera that is awesome, but it's a little bit long in the tooth at this point. When you can pick up an OM5 for $13.99 with a 12-45 Pro and get all of that and more, right? You get everything with an OM5. So, or a G9 Mark II from, well, that's a little big in my opinion, be an everyday camera, but certainly the OM5 Mark II with a 12-45 Pro, I think is still a better choice than an old Sony RX1R for $2,000. But I did look at it. The Sigma FP, very interesting camera. Yeah, it's electronic shutter only, right? I looked at that, but the EVF is ridiculous on it. You can attach one to the side. I'm like, that a little bit too much compromise in battery life and all of that, right? FP is very interesting camera though. The problem is they need to come out with some pancake lenses. I think they're gonna have like a 20-40 or 28-50. They're gonna have a very compact zoom kit lens very soon for the L-mount system. And at that point, the new Panasonic S9 is a lot more attractive. The deal breaker in that camera for me right now is no EVF. I could live without mechanical shutter. Honestly, I shoot electronic shutter 90% of the time anyway. But now the S9 is like looking really good, except for the frickin' EVF. Assuming, I think it's a 20-40, right? The new like really tiny zoom kind of kit lens they're coming out with. Because the current kit lens, the 20-60, that's a monster lens. Optically is pretty good, right? It's also a monster optically, but that's a big ass lens to put on a tiny camera, something that's the same size as my Pen F for all intents and purposes. It's a full frame camera about the size of a Pen F, but then you got to put a big honking lens on it. Now, of course, you could spend $1,000 and get the TL lenses from Leica, right? The 28, I think it's a 28 2.8. Nice pancake lens, optically pretty awesome, right? Trust me, I looked at that too. But then now we're looking at $2,500, right? With the camera plus a used 28mm Leica. Oh, that Tia, I'm sorry. I was looking at the CL. The S9, you can't use that 28 because it'd be the 28 is a APS-C lens. You'd have to look at adapting L mount glass to M mount type lenses, right? And then there's a good selection there, but now you're into manual focus. So autofocus to me is, you got to have an everyday camera. It's got to be autofocus, in my opinion. Okay. But yeah, the FP was definitely on my short list for a very short time until I started seeing all the compromises. And Norm says, I'm down to one camera, EM1 Mark III. So my personal question is, what are my everyday lenses? 12, 20, 25, 12 to 40 Pro with weather sealing. Honestly, for you, Norm, I would just go 12 to 40 Pro. The 12 to 40 Pro on an EM1 Mark III, that is bread and butter, man. Those go together like bread and butter. And it's very, very comfortable to hold and handle that combination. It's a little bulky overall, but if this is your only camera, and you want to make it an everyday camera, 12 to 40 Pro. You got the f2.8, you got amazing handling. The combination of those two things, it feels, it just does not have, you don't feel encumbered by its size and weight because it's not a small camera at that point, right? 12 to 40 Pro with an EM1 Mark III, it's not a small system anymore, but it doesn't feel heavy or bulky or uncomfortable, right? It's something that you could really truly use every single day because of the handling. So when you go back to some of the qualities I talked about for an everyday camera, ease of use, that 12 to 40 Pro on an EM1 Mark III is the easiest, most enjoyable thing to use ever, right? And that's what I would recommend. I mean, if you really need that extra stop and a half of light, then maybe you want to bring the 20 or 25. If you're doing astrophotography, like night shots, the 12mm f2, you know, you need that extra stop. The 12mm f2 has got, I regret selling mine, but I have the 12 to 40 Pro, so I was like, well, if I didn't shoot 12mm, I don't shoot 12mm very often. I can always whip that thing out. And I have a 12 to 32 kit lens from Panasonic. So it was a lens that I didn't use very often because I didn't need f2 very often at 12mm, because I have the 8mm f1.8 if I want to go wide and fast, right? And Muhammad's using the M5 Mark I. Yeah, awesome, awesome little camera. And then John says, fits well in the hand. Everyday camera equals fits well in the hand, easy menus I know I feel safe in. And these are my wishes, so I looked and I find good motifs. Yep. The OM5 pocketability aside, does it or can it do birds in flight effectively? Yes. Okay, so it doesn't have bird detect or subject detect, right? I'm not framed in the camera anymore. I switched to this wider angle and then now anyway. I look a little weird too, right? I'm actually very buff, but I look skinny here. I'm just kidding. Okay, OM5 birds in flight. You have to use basically the autofocus with tracking. And the tracking on the OM5 is not much. It's not much to talk. A very good source for doing birds in flight autofocusing is Matthew Gasquet at Mirrorless Lessons. He has settings for the EM1 Mark III. Use those settings on your OM5 because they're the same camera. But you want to use something like a 5-point box with continuous autofocus, not tracking. 5-point box with continuous autofocus. And you're going to have to up your skill set tracking by eye. Okay? So you're going to have to be able to pick up that camera and zoom in very quickly, or if you're using a prime, like a 300 f4 Pro, and pick up that bird in that little box very quickly. And then you can, if you can track and follow that bird and keep it within that little box, it does a great job. He was getting like a 90-something% hit rate with birds in flight with the EM1 Mark III, a la carte OM5. Same camera, same performance, maybe even a little better on the OM5. But yeah, so it is effective. It's effective for birds in flight as far as you can track it by eye, because it doesn't have subject detect and it's not going to track it for you. But if you can track it, use continuous autofocus, keep your shutter speeds at like 1/2000, depending on the bird and lighting and all that, it'll do a great job. And I've taken many, I wasn't really into birding that much before I got the OM1, but I've taken plenty of good pictures of birds in flight with my EM5 Mark III, my EM1 Mark III, with continuous autofocus. But I don't have a lot of examples from those cameras because I wasn't really into birding until I got the OM1. But anybody that was or is into birding with their EM1 Mark III and OM5, they will tell you the same thing, I believe. I haven't heard otherwise. And Contra, good to see you. I'm glad you're here too. I thought I saw a question earlier on. Yeah, I think it was this one, Clemens, I hope you're still here. I'm sorry I missed this. What was the question anyway? Any tips on how to consolidate what was captured on different cameras on the same occasion? Thinking of image processing and backup. Okay, I don't, okay, I'm doing something, I did something like that today, but I have very specific intent with each camera. But what I did is I actually created folders, separate folders for the Pen F, the LX100, and this particular lens, not the Sony camera itself, but the lens. And I put them in a folder called projects. I don't know if I can show you. I'll just give you an example of what I'm doing, just to give you some ideas, because I can't give you a perfect answer. But I'm going to give you the idea. I'm going to show you how I'm doing it right now, because it's exactly what I did today. I'm just waiting for this to come up. Okay, can I share that screen? All right, so, my typical organization is, I have a media folder, 2024, and then I break it down by quarter. And then within each quarter, I break it down by day. And then I label each folder what it is. I'm a little bit behind in labeling these properly. So it's basically a chronological order. And then, but for what you're talking about specifically, this is how I organize everything. 80% of what I do, I organize this way. The other way I organize is this way, is by projects. So here I have the Olympus Stylus 1S, the Pen F, and then within this folder I have, by date. These are short-term projects that I don't need to break it down by year and quarter. You know, this is not like an archive of these things. And then I have the LX100, and then I break that down by date. And I'm a little bit behind on some of the these are very recent, July 27, 28, 29. I need to kind of get into these. And then I break this down. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm breaking it down by camera under a projects folder. So, and it doesn't have to be by camera or lens, right? Like these are breaking down by lens. And then when the projects are done, I just put them into an archive and they go in here because I'm not going to need them anymore. But this is what I do. So that this is how I'm consolidating, putting things in, and it's not chronologically at the highest level. At the highest level, it's by lens or camera, and then it goes chronological from there. And sometimes I break it down even further within that particular, because I might break it down by video, by genre, whatever, within that camera or lens. Now, depending on what photo editing software you use, they may have additional folder or project structures that you can use. But if we're talking about just doing it all yourself, like I do most of my organization myself on my hard drive because I can easily back that whole thing up. But I just, yeah, that's the best I can do for you in terms of giving you some tips or ideas of organizing your things. Okay. Oh, thank you, the great Vanzina. I appreciate the super chat. That's awesome. Thank you so much. It's so greatly appreciated. Um, and the great Vanzini says, right now it's the GX7, too many to choose from. Yeah, I feel you, brother. And to me, everyday camera, it's one I enjoy using every day, like the OM5 and the 20. Yeah, the 21.4 lens. That's an interesting lens. It's kind of a monster lens, though. It's a little bit big. I think I'd probably just get the 20 Pancake from Panasonic. But I don't know. I was looking at it. I'm not surprised at all that that's a great combination for you. As I would imagine it is for a lot of people. It would be a great combination. I'm waiting for the next generation of the OM1. I've got the M5 1 and 2. Yeah, I think that's smart. I have the OM1 Mark 1. I'm 99.9% sure I'm going to skip the Mark 2. You never know. I might get a bug up my butt and go get it, but my brain tells me it'd be very smart to wait for the Mark III, though, right? And the Canon G5X is my grab-and-go camera for snapshots. 1-inch sensor. Yeah, the G5X is nice. 24 to 120, very fast and pocketable. That is, I don't know if it's weather sealed or not. If it is, even better. But that's an excellent example of a great everyday camera. Yeah, I think, John, that's a great example. And I saw some images today, early this morning on Flickr. The guy was using a Canon. See if I can find it. I just started to follow him because he posted in my group. Whoops. See if I can do this without losing my stream. It's in groups. This is the Rob Trek community I was talking about earlier. This guy. clouds catcher just came out of nowhere, started posting in my group. But this was taken with an old Canon PowerShot G9. These at f3.2, so this is a relatively fast lens. What focal length? 12.7. So I don't know. It's probably at least an f2.8 range. Let's look up what this camera is. I know this is an old camera. It's not. So this is I can't, dang it, this is a 2.8, looks like the 4.8. I'm having a hard time reading it. So yeah, 2.8 to 4.8. So it's relatively fast. It's not super fast, but it has a good range on it. It'll go from 7.4 to 44, so you multiply that by 5. So what's that going to be? It's like a 28 to 200, something like that, right? In terms of focal length. And this is an old picture, right? Taken back in 2009. But that's a great picture, I think. And there's many, many more examples on his page. So whoever you are, Cloud Catcher, thanks for posting that. But a lot of these pictures were taken with that G9. And these are just gorgeous. Right? What was this taken with? This is a classic, right? Oh, no EXIF data. I don't think. Let me expand this. Okay. So this was, oops. This was yeah, this is the Panasonic G9. So nice, very nice image. Very, very good example. So, you know, we really need, it would be great to have these premium compact cameras again, just a little bit updated, like this LX100 Mark II, if they would update this. So David Tellett, when I get my LX100 Mark II or Leica Deluxe 7, which I'm going to overpay for, so like I said, these are not cameras that are good value relative to what they can do, but they are extremely qualified to be everyday cameras, right? And I think that's why, as photographers, as people that are buying gear all the time, have a hard time swallowing what they're asking for these cameras. Because we're like, all day long, you can buy much better cameras for the same or less money. I could get a Canon R8 with a 24 to 105, you know, kit, not their f4, but it's like an f4 to f5.7 or f4 to f7, something crazy, right? But that isn't that camera is 10 times more capable than this ever will be. But it's bigger. Doesn't have image stabilization, right? Sucky battery life. I mean, it's a great camera. Canon R8 with a 24 to 105, f4 to f7 point something. You can get that brand new on sale, you know, with the right sales. You can get that brand new kit for like $15.99. And it's better in every way than this camera. But is it better as an everyday camera? Not so much. It's kind of a big, it's a big comment, it's a big thing, right? It's much wider, much deeper, mainly because it has a deeper grip and it has a longer lens. They have, yeah, even their kit lens isn't that small. They have some very nice primes though. They're 28 2.8s. They have one of those. They have a, I think they have a 40. Anyway, Canon's got some nice pancake primes where it would almost make the R8 like an everyday camera. But I'm starting to see why people are paying premiums for these premium compacts. because there's nothing else out there that does what these can do. Where else are you going to find something this small at f1.7 with a zoom range 24 to 75 going to 2.8? It's just not out there. I can't find it, you know, not with a large sensor compact like this, micro four thirds in it. I find my, oh, I gotta make this bigger. I find my Canon M6 Mark II. Oh, that's a great little camera. No EVF though, but I like this. I like silver, but I like that silver top on it, and it feels really good in the hands for such a small camera. So you got the 22 f2 pancake. The only thing that I miss is lack of both IBIS and optical stabilization with that con. Oh, I didn't. That's right. It doesn't have image stabilization, does it? Yikes. So, and all they have now, and that's, they don't have anything in rangefinder style, do they? Canon. Everything is DSLR style. The closest thing would be like the Canon M100 or R100. They have that on sale with kit lens for $399, but it doesn't have a flip screen. But it's not a bad little camera in terms of image. It's everything the Canon M6 can do, but no flip screen. The form factor is, it's very plasticky. The M6 Mark II with that 22 f2, because I don't have a 22 f2 for the R100. You know, the APS-C cameras for Canon. This is only on the M series. I used to have an M50 for a while. Never used it. But I had an M50 for a while, and I was lusting after this lens. But I didn't use the camera, so what am I going to do with that lens? I don't know. But yeah, Contra, I agree though. That's an excellent everyday camera that needs to be updated by Canon. Canon needs to come out with an R6. Oh, they have an R6. What would they call it? Call it the RM. No, don't do that, because then people think it's the M mount. They need to come out with a rangefinder style camera that uses the new RF mount glass. Because you can get the nice pancake zooms. They have a 28, I think I would mention like 1,000 times. If Canon could come out with a nice rangefinder style RF mount camera that's cheap, no, it doesn't have to be that cheap, but under $1,000, they would have a killer camera. And God forbid they make it retro style at all. You know what I mean? Can you imagine a nice retro style rangefinder camera from Canon with the RF mount and all of that Canon, you know, menus and color science and everything Canon is popular for? They would destroy the market, because they're not going to have a shortage problem like Fuji and now Leica. You're going to be able to walk into any store any day of the week and go buy a Canon camera. You can go buy an old Canon Rebel T7 right now. Okay? That's a little plastic fantastic camera. DSLR, right? Has a mirror. But that's a fantastic little camera. The Rebel T7, relatively small, great everyday camera. Right? If you want to talk about DSLRs, that's a great little everyday camera. That'll fit in your glove box. It ain't going to fit in your coat pocket unless you got big coat, but it's certainly fit in your glove box, right? So maybe that's another way to look at it, an everyday camera. Does it fit in your glove box? Because I don't think an everyday camera has to be able to fit in your front pocket or a coat pocket. An everyday camera, if it fits in your glove box in your car, so it's a little bigger than what you might need in a coat that you could put in your coat pocket, but not so big that it doesn't fit in your glove box, right? Because my heavy duty cameras, my my what is it, my OM1 with the 300 f4, my 7R5 with any lens, they all go in the trunk. they're not going in the glove box. They're just too big for that, right? Those are cameras that go in the trunk. So if your camera has to go in the trunk, that is not an everyday camera. Okay, that's my definition. Everyday camera has to be able to fit in your glove box. Okay, and Susanna Erickson, I have a smaller M43 camera than the OM1 Mark II, but I always end up carrying the OM1 Mark II around. It's good. It's too good to leave. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the OM1 is such a great camera. I use it just for work and birding. I posted a bunch of birding pics on my Flickr and Instagram. If you look, oh, let's see. I don't know how to. How come I don't know how to navigate Flickr? Here, you. So yeah, I just posted a bunch of stuff here. These are all my OM1 shots, but you know, look at that. This camera is so fantastic. And you know, Susanna, I'm sorry. If you pair that with the 12 to 40 Pro, we're talking, you know, bread and butter, right? Those things go together so well, and the ease of use and functionality of that combination is second to none. It's the most comfortable, best handling combination ever designed by anybody in the entire industry, in my opinion. All right, so this goes back to something I talked about earlier. If I take the Pen F and put the kit lens on, you can see I'm at 20,000 ISO, and if I really crop in, and here's the Panasonic LX with its lens, and I'm at f2.8. I'm at ISO 6400. And if you pixel peep this, look at the noise at, you know, 20,000 versus, as if there's any surprise. Now, I can apply noise reduction, and unless you really pixel peep and look for it, it's hard to tell the difference between these two images anymore. But my point is, look at the difference in ISO. So I got a comment that, you know, it's not really a comparison because I'm comparing 20,000 versus 6,400. But that was my point was, you know, if I want to keep my everyday camera compact like this LX100, right? In terms of size, because these are very similar. Ultimately, these are very similar in size. They both fit in the glove box, in other words. This is what's going to happen when you go in low light is this camera with a kit lens is going to be at ISO 20,000 instead of 6,400. And unless you're decent at post-processing and use DxO in my case, but some noise processing software, this is what you're going to have to contend with. And if you do straight out of camera JPEGs, they're going to be muddy or more muddy than, say, the LX100 Mark II. So, okay. Yep, Bob Finley, EM1 Mark III, another bread and butter combination there. And a small prime. I mean, this is the beauty of the Micro Four Thirds system is, yeah, I get it. 12 to 40 Pro and EM1 Mark III is not as, you know, it's not a significant size and weight savings over any other system you could put together. A7, you could put it like a Sony A7C Mark II with a 40 millimeter f2.8 or whatever that small lens is. But yeah, try and put a 24 to 70 on there, right? At f2.8 and get the same light gathering ability. Okay, put an f4 28 to 70. I challenge you. Try to find a 24 to 70 f4 that's smaller than an EM1 Mark III with a 12 to 40, 2.8. You know, yeah, A7C Mark II will give you better image quality, more megapixels, ultimately even with a kit lens. against OM1 with a 12-40 Pro. But ease of use, handling, how it feels in your hands, if you put priority on those things at all, and you should, there's no better system than an EM1 Mark III with a 12-40 Pro. I would argue that the EM1 Mark III is even more comfortable than the OM1. Because OM1, there was a significant change in the design overall that made it just a little bit less comfortable than the EM1 Mark III. Not a deal breaker by any means, but I don't have my EM1 Mark III anymore. But here's my OM1. The difference is in right here. If you have an EM1 Mark III, look at it right now, and you will see on the EM1 Mark III that this is curved in over here, like this. Kind of a slight angle. So when you put your hand on this, see the angle of my knuckles are diagonal? That's how my grip is. My grip here, I'm sorry, you can't see. Anyway, I'm making this too complicated. Just hold an EM1 Mark III, hold an OM1 if you can side by side, and you'll right away feel the difference right here. This is a big deal. That's why when I picked up the Canon R8, I almost converted, because the Canon R8 has an awesome, what do they call this? Ergonomic design right in here. It's a huge difference in how the camera feels in your hand when you're holding it. The Sony is awful. Okay, that thing digs into the palm of my hand like a freaking nail. I don't know how to describe it. But see, this is even less curved than the OM1. And this corner, I mean, I have this plate on here now, so it's kind of irrelevant. But yeah, I got a bruise right here holding this camera. Because I'm holding it like that's because I got the plate. It's my fault, okay? But all the same, this is like a brick. It's like holding a brick. And that's what this is how I felt about the Panasonic S5, and that's one of the main reasons I got rid of it. Was it wasn't comfortable to hold. Ergonomically, it just was not even close to the M1 Mark III that I had at the time. It's not even close to my OM1 anymore, because now the G9 Mark II is basically the S5 body. This is look at the button right here. Look at how that's curved right in here, right? So when I rest my finger, it just wraps around and my finger lays right onto the shutter button. The M1 Mark III has a nice curve in here. So when you hold the M1 Mark III with a 12-40 Pro, man, let's look at the Sony. And the S5 is no different. What do they have on here? They have a freaking sharp corner right here. So when I put my finger up here, how is that comfortable? It's not. It's not a big deal. Because most of the time it's hard to tell, but your hand is not really resting on this corner that much. So it doesn't dig into your finger that much. But ultimately, you're adjusting your hand to fit the camera, right? Olympus, at least the OM1, EM1 Mark III, that whole series, the camera is adjusted to fit your hand. It's different. And this is one of the things, going back to what I said in the beginning of the stream, how Olympus is designed, OM systems are designing their cameras for photographers. They understand the things that, make using a camera easier. And ergonomics of a camera is just as important as any function button. The placement of the function button right here, perfect. I'm not function button, but joystick. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. And supposedly the A7R5 has improved ergonomics. Something about the front. I don't know. I use this on a tripod a lot, you know. Ugh. But anyhow, it is what it is. It's a good camera. A lot of people love that thing. They love Sony. People just love this camera. So I don't want to take anything away from anybody that loves their Sony camera. You know, use it, go out and shoot, take awesome pictures. You know, that's ultimately what it's all about, right? Is enjoy, if you enjoy your camera, you're going to take, you know, go out and enjoy taking pictures, you know, take some great pictures with it. Ultimately, that's all that matters. Doesn't matter, your gear doesn't matter ultimately, but you know, if we're going to talk about gear and everyday cameras, these are the things that have influenced me tremendously. Yeah, another one for the 12 to 40 Pro, the G5X. Oh, lastly, you have a G5X too. Yeah, that's a great camera. I almost bought the G7X Mark III when it first came out, but I was shooting with my Pen PL8 at the time. I was like, you know, I think I like my Pen PL8 better than this G7X Mark III. G7, whatever, you know, the little compact cameras from I wish I had bought it now, but because that camera, I don't know, I've never held the G5, but the G7 is very, very comfortable to hold. Really nice textured rubberized grip on the front. It's a great, great everyday camera. It just needs to be updated a little bit, but it's a great everyday camera. EVF, decent contrast autofocus, decent video with electronic stabilization. It doesn't have real stabilization, if I recall, but the electronic stabilization wasn't bad, and you know, for video. But yeah, it just had a little bit too many compromises to be my everyday camera. But if you want ultimate portability, that may offset some of these other compromises. You know, no IBIS, no real IBIS, um, smaller sensors, a Type 1, right, sensor. And so you're going to compromise on image quality a little bit. Okay. Rob, turn around and pick one. I know, right? Look at this. Look at this rack behind me of stuff, man. It's just a lot of them are film cameras. Yeah, ain't that the truth, Darko? I have more cameras than I need, but not as many as I want. I think at some point you go beyond what you need to things that you want, right? And because ultimately, my very first digital camera, let me qualify that. My very first interchangeable lens camera, when I started photography in 2013, was this Sony NEX6. And even then, you can say I put a bottom plate on these. I'm a big fan of these plates protecting the camera. I don't care because a lot of people have the EM5 Mark III, the OM5, and they're breaking their tripod mount. It's because it's plastic. But people break their metal mount cameras too. They're more durable. So if you're doing peak design stuff, yeah, you don't want to do that with an OM5 or an EM5, but you know, the Mark IIIs. But you could do it with this camera without this plate because this basically all metal. My EM5 Mark II all metal. You could probably peak design that pretty easily without too much concern, but I wouldn't do it with any camera that has a plastic body, you know, including a lot of Canon cameras. They're entry-level Canons with they're all plastic. I wouldn't do that, but I try not to do it at all. I always have something here to distribute the pressure across the bottom of the camera. Anyhow, this was my first interchangeable lens camera. Still like new. Not a freaking scratch on it that I can see. It's amazing. And it's very thin and small. Put the 16 to 50 kit lens, which I have somewhere in there. And this takes fine pictures. Mechanical shutter only, no IBIS. High ISO is a wreck. So is color science. Takes great black and white. But when it comes to colors, yeah, I have to make sure, I have a preset, so it takes care of the colors, but uh I forget why I brought that out. But that's a great everyday camera, even today, to this day. Even though the autofocus is a little weak, it does struggle, believe it or not, that struggles with autofocus more than even my EM10 Mark II. Wait, so I got the 12 to 40 Pro f4 Pro. Seller said drop, difficult to mount. I've not had any. $70. I'm so jealous. I spent more on that on a tank of gas. Oh my God. And quick reminder, hit the thumbs up. I appreciate that, Marco. Marco has always been so good to me. Marco is very generous, very kind, and has always been very supportive of the channel here. So I really appreciate that, Marco. I'm curious how the Leica LX100 features into their menu system, or if they kept all the features. Leica menus are great. Okay, so if we're talking specifically about the Deluxe 8, the one that just came out, they did not incorporate 4K photo mode, focus stacking, none of this stuff. It's basically PASM, some very basic exposure bracketing, and different autofocus modes. But yeah, it's pretty stripped down when it comes to the menu. When I looked at the user manual, because I looked at this is another thing. If you're looking at thinking about buying a camera, download the user manual and go through it and see if it has all the features you're looking for relative, assuming you know what to look for, right? A lot of people just starting out, they wouldn't even know what to look for. But download the manual. At this point in my photography career, I always download the manual and look at what features that I want it to have and make sure it has it. And if it doesn't, is it a deal breaker? And does it have any features that I would like to have that I don't have now? Which, being an OM system, there is no feature that any camera has that the OM system does not, that I can think of. If anyone knows of a camera feature that is not on the OM system, that is on another camera, let me know. Because I might be like, wow, maybe I need to get that camera. I don't know. But I'm not aware of any. Anyhow. No, they did not keep all the features in the Deluxe 8. The Deluxe 7, however, does have everything. The only difference is the colors of the menu are different. It's a little bit more faded. It's not quite as crisp. The Panasonic menus on the LX100 are like bright red, bright yellow, or orange. The Leica one is a little bit faded. But the Deluxe 8, yeah, they stripped it. They stripped it. Cripple hammer, as Casey would say, over at Camera Conspiracy. No, it's not flip. It's articulating 360. So the Pen F is, yeah, it flips out like this, which I mean, it's not a deal breaker for me if the camera has one or the other. But I would prefer it has something. That's the only thing about this camera that bothers me a little. It needs an update. It needs an articulating screen, either tilting or fully articulating like this. So yeah, you have to pull it out if you want to do low angle, high angle. But it's not a deal breaker for me as far as everyday cameras goes. Because like this one doesn't have one at all. It's not a deal breaker. This is a better everyday camera in a lot of ways than the Pen F is. But ultimately, I think I would go with the Pen F. It's just more buttons and dials, right? More tactile experience, if you prefer that. So I wish the Pen F would be weather sealed, because then it would be definitely my back. Yeah. So many people want that. It's, where I live, it's not a big deal. Actually, it almost wouldn't matter where I live, because I'm a fair weather photographer. If it's raining, I don't go out. The Leica Q3, it's only 6K. Okay, it's not portable. It's freaking expensive. So it's not portable, it's not affordable. Those are kind of deal breakers for an everyday camera, in my opinion. Those two right there, despite everything else. Because I looked at the original Leica Q, right? Because that lens makes up for that 28 millimeter f2 or whatever it is on the Leicas, the Q cameras. That lens is really doing most of the heavy lifting when it comes to considering that camera. If it wasn't for that lens on that camera, nobody would buy that freaking thing, right? In my opinion. That lens is what makes that camera and does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to your decision making. Because you can put up with a lot of other BS on a camera if you want to get that lens at that price. But it's just those two things, right? It's not portable, it's not affordable. Even the Leica Q, the original one, is 2,500 bucks used. I was like, oh. Of course, if you want to buy that lens separately, you probably pay almost that much. But that's what I mean. That's what I mean by the Leica Q system. That lens is doing all the heavy lifting in the decision making. Because you can put up with just about everything else about that camera because of that lens. But it's a little bit out for me. But when you put all the criteria I had for an everyday camera, you might put more weight on some things than I do, like weather sealing. I put virtually no weight on that at all, and that could be a total deal breaker for probably 80% of you. I'm just shocked about how many people really care about weather sealing. It really surprised me. Not anymore, but initially I was like, why is weather sealing such a big deal? But then, you start getting feedback and comments about, yeah, it rains all the freaking time where I live in Washington State, UK. It's like it's never sunny. So, you know, uh, way up north where it's snowing all the time or it's cold, weather sealing, right? Because, the snow and ice are melting on the camera, etc. So it's just a lot of reasons that I don't run into here. I think Eric lives nearby. He's probably in the same boat with me. Weather sealing is kind of optional, right? I could be wrong, but let me know, Eric. Is weather sealing kind of optional for you or not? It is for me. Says I prefer my M5 Mark II for its usability, though the G5X2 is not that bad either. It's more or less a question of muscle memory. Yes. Yep. More buttons and dials, right? Look at how many buttons and dials are on this M5 Mark II. My God, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons on top, and then 1, 2, 3 dials, and then I got a lever and a button here, plus 4, 5 more buttons. So I got 6 buttons, a lever, and a D-pad. You can add 4 more buttons if you want to count that. So 6 and a lever plus 4, 10 buttons on the back. And then you have one right here on the front. And then 3 dials on the top. I mean, like the Pen F, there's just so many buttons on here. There's very little you can't do holding the camera up to your eye that you have to go into the menu for. You can do everything right here. You have to set up everything before you go out, but once it's all set up, you could probably get through a whole shoot without having to go into the menu again, right? Um, Not having a flip screen on the Pen F is a benefit, yes. I agree. Dark was asking, do you feel that DxO noise and editing software can handle the point-and-shoot 1-inch sensors in regards to low-light shooting? Yeah, no problem. Because I processed a lot of images on all these small sensor compacts, my LX5, my TG5, the Stylus 1S, excellent results. No problem. John says, I also have the GM5, usually the 12 to 32 because the lens has image stabilization and there's no IBIS in the GM5. Oh, that's right. You can buy, the 12 to 32 has OIS in it. So it does offset the lack of IBIS in the camera for photography, not for video so much. The 21.7 is also great lens on that camera if you don't mind shooting without IS. Yes. I might have to get me a 21.7. You know, Zeiss made a point and shoot. Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, 6K. I did look into that a little bit too, but it's kind of big and heavy, right? It's kind of right up there with the Leica. Rob, there's a small fisheye lens, Olympus or not, that you might recommend. I have the Olympus 9mm cap lens to mess with. Yes, Roger. Okay, so there's if you want to talk about budget lenses, I have a video where I compared some lenses side by side, including a 9mm body cap lens and an 8mm fisheye lens, which was even wider than the 9, like significantly wider than the 9mm, but brighter. I don't think they sell it anymore though, so I don't have any recent recommendations. But they do have. Let me just take a quick look. Let me just jog my memory a bit. Okay, yeah, okay, now I remember. All right, so I did review this lens. I gave this lens to David Crooks, and he loves it. But this TT Artisan 7.5mm, this is a very good lens for $139. If you want a full circular fisheye effect, this is a very good lens. Either I have the 7 Artisans one. I haven't tried the Mikey one, but I assume it's the same lens. These two are very good lenses right here. You know, this is a little bit more. This is going to be very similar to the 9mm, just a little wider. This one here is a totally different effect. It's a full circular fisheye like this. And that's a cool lens, and it's 150 bucks. It's not bad. So those two are great alternatives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to it in the chat. It's my affiliate link, so if you or anyone decides to buy from Amazon today, because if you use it tomorrow, it's not going to work. If you want to buy anything today, I'll get credit for it, which is greatly appreciated as always. And I thought, says my OM1 Mark II with my 150 to 400 4.5 is very light compared to the full frame equivalent, but I hesitate to take it with me for hikes of more than a few. Yeah, it's all relative, right? To full frame. I ran into a Quan yesterday at Huntley Meadows. He upgraded his. He has the Sony 600mm f4, and he upgraded his A9. He upgraded his A1 to the A9 Mark III, which is the new global shutter one, and he loves it. I didn't talk to him too much about the camera. because you know, and this is I gave him a real hard time about this. I said, Quan, you spent $13,000 on that freaking lens. You spent $6,000 on this camera. How much did you spend on the tripod you're mounting this on? 350 bucks. Oh, you got $20,000 worth of gear on a $300 tripod. Seriously. He said, well, I don't use it that much. So I didn't want to spend money. I spent all my money on these two things. I didn't want to spend that much on a tripod. I, you know, there's a saying or a phrase that is perfect for this situation, but I can't think of it. But Quan, I know you never watch my streams. He used to be an Olympus shooter, actually, but he switched over to the Sony. But really, man, go out and spend like $1,000 on a tripod, okay? Seriously, and get a good tripod and a good what do they call those? Swivel heads, whatever those things are called, right? That you use with the giant telephotos. Why on God's name? I just wouldn't do it. I'm done with ultra cheap tripods myself. Now I recommend some budget tripods time to time, and I always caveat that with take care of it. Don't extend the legs fast, you know, just open them up, extend them, lock things down. You know, don't beat up a budget entry like a $70, $80 tripod. Don't beat those up. They're going to fall apart and break. I don't care. I love K&F. I love Newer. Okay, they make great stuff at cheap prices, but you get what you pay for. They're going to break if you treat them like a professional tripod. Okay. Anyway, so Quan got this budget tripod with this premium gear. It just kills me. And Eric got back to me, says, I never use weather sealing. I don't like standing in rain. Yeah. See, we get enough fair weather days. Even on days they predict rain, it only rains for like an hour usually. And then you can go back out. You know, and if you're already out, go in and get some coffee, then go back out. That being said, everything is always a question of compromise. You don't ask an MFT camera for the dynamic range of a medium format sensor, but you gain a lot in lightness. Yep. It's all balance, right? Give and take. And Wayne says he's had good luck with the Rokinon fisheye. Yep. A lot of these lenses, I think, are designed by the same and made by the same, just rebranded 3 or 4 different ways, right? Samyang, Rokinon, TT Artisans, you know, and others, right? Now, that's not to say that some of them don't seem more exclusive than others. Like you won't. Sorry. I mean, like this 7.5 millimeter, I can't find in any other company, right? I'm not going to find a Rokinon Samyang, I don't think. But that fisheye lens, I've seen several variations of. So, anyway, Rokinon is one of those where I've seen Samyang variations of the Rokinon repeatedly. Those two seem to be very similar, at least. And Being Wolfie says, well, my EM1 bricked at one point. Then it started working again. Plus, I'm having issues with Panasonic 9mm on it. Really blurry image at the edge. Oof. That's odd. Because everyone says that 9mm is awesome. So something doesn't seem right. Is it the EM1 Mark I, like the original? Then that's just old. And electronics just get old. If it's like a Mark III, it's a little bit too soon for that to start misbehaving that way. But anything electronic, they're just going to get old. They're not going to last forever. I mean, they say everything is solid state. There's no moving parts, but the parts themselves do have a shelf life, right? Capacitors, for example. If you're not familiar with, like, people are getting all their amplifiers, like in hi-fi systems, recapped. It's because the capacitors dry out, and they have to get new capacitors put in. The circuit boards now are SM. Well, anyway, I won't get too complicated, but they just over time they wear out. Batteries die, internal batteries, all kinds of things. Electronics just wear out. They get oxidation on the parts. The resistance changes. That affects the way other parts operate. So if it's an old EM1 Mark 1 and it's been subjected to any kind of humidity, repeated, like if it's been used, well used, it's gonna wear out, unfortunately. I have a $300 monopod with feet for my 200 to 400 VR lens. I'm like, yep. That's good money for a monopod. $300 will get you a good monopod. That's for sure, because you can get monopods for $20, right? That are fairly sturdy, but man, I ain't putting no $400 to, he's got that's an awesome system. D500 with a 200 to 400. And Linda Marks, just from hearing you speak, you want the red dot, Mr. Trek. Rational or not, expensive or not? Yes. It's true, because I'm rationalizing in my head. The LX100 is not worth 900, this is not worth $800 or $900 in today's market, relative to other cameras you can get at this price point. And yet, people are paying that and more for this camera. The Deluxe 7, $1,500. How is it worth $500 or $600 more than this camera? It's not. But what it has that this doesn't have is it comes in silver, which I really like. And the buttons and stuff look a little different. It just has a little bit more of a Leica look to it and design. There's no grip. But it's not worth, on any rational level, $500 or $600 more than that camera. Doesn't, because it's the exact same camera. It's purely cosmetic. But I love the silver top. So in my brain, I'm rationalizing, if I'm going to overpay for a camera, why not get one that I really like the best? I really like the Deluxe 7, how it looks better. I just like the looks of it better. Because this is not really a rational purchase outside of, this would be a great everyday camera. So is my Pen F with a 17-1.8. If it wasn't for this, having this right now, I would have bought that Deluxe 8 instantly. But I didn't buy it because I have this. This is an amazing camera. For me, as an everyday camera. The Deluxe 8, if anything, would be a much lesser camera than this. Save for having that very fast zoom lens. The red dot. I'm falling into being an idiot paying for the red dot. See, your brain knows, but your heart, your emotional side, your evil brain, I don't know, just is like, you got a Leica. But I know it's not a Leica. I know it's basically, the Leica brand is only skin deep on that particular camera. Because underneath the skin is this camera. essentially, right? And I like this camera too a lot. I may end up getting this instead, but I'm like, if I'm just gonna overpay for a camera, just get one that I like a little better. And it doesn't seem like the prices are ever going to go down on these things until companies start making these like all the time again. But as long as companies are not going to be making these, Leica's the only one. I can't believe Leica even made one of these. The Fujifilm X100V. It's not a quite, the X100 series is not quite exactly what this is because this has the zoom in it. This is a lot smaller, lighter. And was less expensive even when they came out at the same time. This was less expensive. But it's not weather sealed, doesn't have an articulating or tilting screen. The EVF is, all of the problems and complaints that camera has had since it came out, none of those are deal breakers for me. The EVF is fine for me. I can see it if I move the camera a little bit. I can see the tearing effect that people have, and it bothers a lot of people, but it doesn't affect me. If I just hold the camera steady and look through it, the EVF is fine for me. Weather sealing, I already talked about. It's not an issue for me. So what are we left with? We're left with a very nice, and I tested the lens. I did some, my normal lens testing with it. It's sharp. More than sharp enough. Let's put it that way. The autofocus is fine. I didn't miss focus on anything today that I shot. If I'm using this as an everyday camera, right? Now, an everyday camera is very different than your only camera, right? If this is your only camera, I would have a very different set of criteria. And this is why Sony is doing so well. That autofocus better be spot on in every situation, okay? Because your only camera means you're taking pictures of your kids, your family, your dog, everything that's moving fast, sporting events that you go to for your kids, all of that stuff. Your only camera is you're gonna have to set the bar a lot higher if it's your only camera. This everyday camera thing is like your second or third camera. I should have said that from when I started the stream. Everyday camera is not your only camera. Your everyday camera is your second or third camera. Yeah, the 9mm works great on my, I assume you meant EM5. Okay, last say thanks for stopping in. We'll see you later. And Peter says, got a cheap fisheye on your recommendation. The 8mm 3.8 from years ago. I don't think you can get it anymore. That's a great little lens. It really is. Let me just do a quick search, but I doubt you can get it anymore. Oh, it's here. Holy crap. All right. This one. This is a pretty decent little lens. Dang, I can't believe and what's the timeline here? I don't know who the heck is selling this. Takes about 2 to 3 weeks to deliver it, so it's coming from somewhere. If it was coming from China, it would be less than 2 weeks for me. 2 to 3 weeks means it's coming from one of those European, like other countries, not China or Hong Kong, not the Eastern countries, but something in Europe. I don't know why it takes so long to come from those areas, but yeah, this is a decent lens. So I am going to give you, I'm gonna throw out another affiliate link. All right. I still have this lens. It's really, really sharp. And I did a video on this. So if you search fisheye lenses on my channel, you'll see the video I did on this. It's my early days of YouTube. Get a red Sharpie and save a couple of bucks. I know, but I'd need a silver Sharpie too, because the Leica Deluxe silver. Let me just show it to you, because maybe some of you don't know what I'm talking about. This camera in silver. They overexposed this image a bit. Let's see if they have any better shots. Here's a good shot. I just like the look of that better. You know, I know a lot of Leica people hate it. Because, you know, I went into the Leica forums to read about this camera. And a lot of them were pretty negative about the silver. Let's see what I mean. $1,400 versus, you know, where's my watch list? So RXE, I gotta delete this. This is spam anyway. Whoever's listing this for $13.99, they're lying. This is an RX1 Mark 1, not a Mark 2, because they don't even have the real picture there. They got a stock image picture. Somebody needs to report that. But yeah, Deluxe 7, 1250. I'm thinking about this one. I love the LX7. I have the LX5, but the LX7 is a much better camera. Except I have an XZ2, which is pretty much the same thing, so I'm still holding out. Here's an LX100. Is this still available? Yeah. Yeah, 31 people watching this thing. But here's the black one. But what he's giving for $875, you're getting 2 batteries, you're getting the charger, and you're getting the flash, the original strap, and the auto lens cap, and the memory card. So you're getting a lot of extra stuff. And it looks like it's in good shape overall. But anyway, that's what that other silver one looked like. So that, I just think I mean, is it worth $500 more or 400, whatever it is, the difference here? No, not at all. But is the LX100 worth $875? It's not. It's just not in terms of what it's capable of. But what it allows you to do, as far as its form factor, as far as being an everyday camera, that's where it really scores high. And that's why, you know, that's why this pricing makes no sense at all to me. Because it's not worth $875 as a camera, but where else are you going to find an everyday camera that can do all of these things in such a small form factor? It's not worth $875 because this camera came out 6 years ago for $995. This should be like a $400 camera, in my opinion. But it's because nobody else is making cameras like this anymore that this price is so high. Because these are going to run out one day, and you're not going to be able to get them anymore, assuming they're still in demand. But yeah, the supply is limited, so prices are going up. You know, throw on inflation on top of that, and then nobody else making any currently, other than the Leica Deluxe 8, which, think about it, was a steal at $1,600 for what it is. Although it's not worth $1,600 in any practical sense, because you can get an OM5 with a 12 to 45 Pro for $13.99. You know, you can get a Fuji X-T50 with a kit lens for $1,600. You can get a lot better cameras that are only a little bigger than that, but they're not this cam. Anyway, I'm with you. I think Leica should make a Deluxe 8 with M43 lens mount. That camera with a penny 1.7 would be a dream. I like the simplicity of the buttons on the Deluxe 8. The Deluxe 8 with M43 lens mount would breathe some life. Yeah, I agree. I wonder though, I wonder how much difference the menu system makes though. Because this is a very strong argument, right? Making a menu system like the Leica menu system, at least what I saw from the videos and things, it's pretty amazing. Very simplified, right to the point, the things that you want to do with a camera as an enthusiast photographer, right? And unlike the Fuji X100V, which is insanely complicated because it's the same as my XH, I have an XH2 back here somewhere. The menu systems are just worse than Sony, in my opinion. I mean, Sony's not great, but the Fuji is even worse for me. I'm really struggling with the Fuji menus. I get through them, but yeah. The Leica menu, I could see myself adapting to very quickly because there's not much there, right? Aperture, shutter speed, ISO, autofocus. And then you dig down a little further, you know, white balance and shutter modes, etc. The one thing I didn't mention about the LX100, this Deluxe 8, Deluxe 7, they have leaf shutters in them. And that's pretty cool. So it's really a very quiet camera as well. There's no mechanical shutter. You could use the leaf shutter, the mechanical shutter with high sync speeds if you want to use a flash, or you can just go full on electronic. And Eric says, one suggestion, don't purchase a 90mm micro channel update. It gets boring quick. Once you focus stack, you never go back because you're getting a less of a macro image. Interesting. I know Michael Rydell. I haven't watched him in a while, but I did watch him when he was talking about buying the 90mm macro, and I saw one of his videos where he was using it, but I'm not really a macro guy. Otherwise, I would have bought this lens a long time ago. I would have bought the 60 macro a long time ago if I was a macro guy. I'm more of a extension tube guy, like this, right? I just love the extension tube with the 40 to 150 kit lens, or any lens. I use this on my 300mm f4 Pro to take the picture of that frog, I think. Yeah, I'm just a extension tube guy. But and you can do focus stacking and everything with that, right? Not stack, I'm sorry, focus bracketing. Oh, excuse me. I only got about 4 hours of sleep, and then this is only my second coffee. My first coffee, I had it like 4 in the morning this morning. His latest update, he's done. Oh, really? He's done with macro. The macro guy is done with macro? God. Well, that's it. He's burnt out on macro. That's the end of YouTube then. Man. I went through my channel subscriptions because I like to see what people are up to, right? People that I subscribe to. So I went in there and, you know, you get a little blue dot or something next to the ones where they have new videos, right? And I'll click on that and see what's new. Click on that, see what's new. But I would say 80% of the channels that I've subscribed to over the last 10 years, they're gone. And I need to unsubscribe from them because they haven't published anything in years. I don't know. I don't know if they've just recently dropped out or if they've been out for years, but some of them are more recent than others. They stopped producing. There's a lot of people dropping out of YouTube. It's weird. I mean, I get it. You know, there's not really much money here. Unless you guys donate to me or super chat, you know, I might make like $3 or $4 off this stream from YouTube. That's it. You know, uh, the only time I make money on a live stream is through donations. That's it. I've never sold anything on a live stream other than last week. I might do some more of those shopping with Rob Trek. I did make some, I think I made almost $100 in sales, like commissions off Amazon stuff, uh, from doing those shopping live streams. And, you know, everybody's getting a good deal and I'm making a few bucks. I mean, it's a perfect world, right? So I might do a shopping with Rob Trek live stream. But for now, I'm just going to do this one and I'm going to do the photo editing live stream. I don't think I've ever sold a copy of DxO in any of my photo editing live streams. If I did, I didn't get credit for it because I think I've sold like 3 or 4 licenses for DxO all year. I mean, it's so minuscule. So that's why when I say you guys, if you donate or buy me a coffee, do a super chat, trust me, it is really appreciated because it's like way far and above that $5 super chat I got earlier is going to be more than I make on the stream itself and ad revenue, right? Um, it really makes a huge difference. You're literally buying me a coffee because when I go out to eat breakfast and things, um, you know, coffee's like, I'd be lucky if it was only $5 for a coffee. If you go to a diner, yeah, you're gonna get $3, $4 coffee, but you know, you go to Starbucks, yeah, $5, you might, yeah, you can't get nothing for $5 at Starbucks. Anyway, uh, I forget why I was talking about that. We're talking about shopping or something, but yeah, shopping with Rob Trek. That's that's a fun stream because I like shopping and I'm good at finding deals. Like I bought this thing, man. If you guys are not bookmarking my daily deals uh, that I have for my Amazon stuff, I got this articulating arm, small rig articulating arm for like $7. It's normally like $30, but for like half a day or a day, this was on sale for like 80% off. And I got it for $7. And these are so useful. Uh, anyway, I'll save this for my other stream. I haven't even opened it yet. That's how useful it is. But it just came in yesterday, and I've been shooting out photo walking all weekend. I'll take it out later. Uh, I bought some batteries for like $10 with the charger. $11. I'm sorry, $11 for batteries and charger. Generic, but come on, $11? How can you not buy that just to have extras and have a spare charger you can keep in your car? It's USB-C. Uh, Nowadays, oh wow, I'm gonna have to watch that. I'm just curious. I don't know. It's depressing though when you see people on YouTube like dropping out. I mean, I get it. You know, they got to make a living, right? And YouTube just, you know, unless, I mean, I don't know how that other guy makes. There's people that make a lot of money on YouTube, right? I'm not one of them, obviously. But um, there's a lot of people making more money than I do, significantly more, and dropping out. Like, screw it. I'm not wasting my time with this anymore. And they make good videos. I'm trying to think of who dropped out that I used to really like to watch. And then there's anyway, I don't want to talk about YouTube today. So I tried to buy K&F on your last shopping stream, but the banking system was down and not accept. Oh, that sucks. You know, maybe I'll do a shopping stream tonight. I need to process the images from today that I did on my photo walk, and then I'll maybe I'll do another shopping stream. Shopping on Sunday with Rob, or Sunday shopping. Correction, Canon G9 used ranging 200 to 400 euros. I remember I looked into them as an old EDC ones, yeah. I mean, premium compacts used to be everywhere, you know, with the 1.7-inch sensors, 1 over 1.7. You could buy those all day long. They were a little pricey back in the day, but they were good, and they're still good cameras. If you just want a little, and they're literally pocketable, and they should be cheaper. They should be like $100 right now. But anyway, I can't believe my little Canon camera is selling for like 300 bucks or whatever. I paid like $100 for it, and it's like just going for expensive. This little tiny pocket one. Yeah, this one. This little piece of crap. I mean, it's a fun little camera. Shoots only JPEG. It's all plastic. Let me look this up. ELF 180. I'm just curious. Let's see. ELF 180. Oh, 200 bucks. Okay. 180. 170. So, yeah, so this is selling for more, you know, almost double what I paid for it. Used. It's just ridiculous. This one's kind of mint. I didn't use it that much. It takes nice pictures though. I mean, what you would expect from a camera like this. But pretty decent. I mean, ultimately you can tell the difference, but crazy. That's true. Linda makes a good point. Weather sealing doesn't allegedly last very long, so it's not a priority if I buy a used camera. I don't have any evidence one way or the other, but it makes sense that the rubber seals and things can dry out, wear out, and your camera's not weather sealed anymore. So whether your camera's weather sealed or not, always take care. Brand new, used, always take care with whenever it comes to electronics and water. You know, those two do not mix. Yes, it's Free National Park Day. I went to Great Falls this morning, so I need to process those images. And the shopping vids were fun. Cool. I'm just going to make sure before I wrap it up here, if there were any other questions. Robin says, I'm satisfying my gas with old classic beautifully made film cameras that are selling for peanuts. Yeah. A Canon rangefinder with a 50mm f1.8. So true. The only thing with the old cameras is the grease, right? You have to just make sure the grease, because the grease will dry out too. I don't know how, but a lot of times you have to re-grease, particularly the leaf shutter type stuff. I don't think this is a leaf shutter camera, but leaf shutter cameras, the grease has to be taken apart and greased. But yeah, those can be serviced though, right? Not like electronics. Where are you going to find the parts for a 10 or 20-year-old camera? Yeah, that's true. Sony menus have not slowed down Sony sales. It's because there's so much emphasis on the autofocusing of the Sony. A lot of the people on YouTube, you know, they're like, the autofocus is critical for them. you know, for their photo, because you know, a lot of them are actually they do photography jobs too, and people that aren't doing photo jobs and reviewing the cameras are also looking at people that are going to rely on the autofocus. They're catering to that audience that are going to rely on the autofocus professionally. And that's where Sony is just killing it. You just cannot you cannot beat the Sony autofocus. Uh Canon is probably there or better. Nikon is finally there, right? Where they're keeping up with the Sony 99.999% of the time. But then, you know, you tell somebody, well, you know, one out of every couple hundred shots, you're going to miss it on the Nikon, but you'll get it on the Sony. And then all of a sudden, that just blows up in their head like, I got to get a Sony. I mean, I get it. You know, I'm just throwing numbers out there, but you understand where I'm coming from. Where it's just the marketing of the Sony autofocusing system being so good, and the way people talk about it, like it's the best thing since sliced bread, and every other camera sucks. You know, and they don't say they suck. They'll say, well, it's not class leading. Falls a little behind Sony. You know, they use words like this, right? Like they just kind of taint every other camera system when it comes to autofocus compared to Sony autofocus. And then whenever they talk about Sony autofocus, they say, yeah, they're the benchmark, they're the leader, they're the one to beat. And then when they find a camera that say beat the Sony in autofocus, they don't say I'm switching, right? No, you know, they'll be like, yeah, I've been shooting Sony forever, but now this Canon is doing a better job in this scenario. But I'm sticking to Sony. But if you see a Canon user use a Sony system, they say, I'm switching to Sony. You know what I mean? Those videos drive me nuts. People switching systems. I mean, it's fair to say I'm going to add cameras. I mean, you know, I'll be the first hypocrite on YouTube, right? Because I shoot everything that I feel like. I'm never going to make a video that says I'm switching. I'm dumping this brand or the other. It's just ridiculous, you know? I got cameras that I use for certain things. I'm using my Olympus camera, my OM1 for work and birding. Those two things, birding and work. I use my Pen F, my M5 Mark. Well, I use my Pen F. That's my everyday right now. My M5 Mark III I use in the studio for my portrait work. My M5 Mark II, just kind of a, you know, on the shelf kind of camera. It's just so awesome, this camera. I just take this out once in a while when I don't feel like taking the Pen F. So this is like my Pen F backup, but it's every bit as good as the Pen F in terms of build quality, look and feel, usability, all the things that make an everyday camera. It's just a different style. I just prefer the style of the Pen F, but there's really not much difference between the two otherwise. Yeah, 16 or 20 megapixels, you can't tell the difference. Um, oh man, kids. Sorry to hear that. My sister has the same problem. Every time you know, we have Christmas or whatever, something where families get together, it's like, don't come, we're sick. Because Ethan is sick. Christian is, you know, one of the kids are sick. Last year I bought 50-pound 2 Minolta SLR. Oh, that's money, 50 pounds. That's 50, like European money. 2 Minolta, yes. Last week in London in the market I saw for 200 pounds. And the guy was so busy to selling that I could get the chance to ask how much he could offer me. Yeah, I mean, if you're very diligent, right, you can buy and sell, buy low, sell high. But you have to be kind of you have to kind of know sources, like places to go where they're just selling cameras, they don't know nothing about them. And you know, like I bought a film camera for $7 at a thrift store and sold it for $200, you know, like that, because it was mint in box, never used. um, there's a little pocket camera. I forget, the Olympus Stylus, Miju or whatever. I sold that thing fast because when I saw it for $7, my eyes went, because I knew what that camera was worth. It's worth like 300 on eBay, but I sold it as a trade-in, got something else. Um, like a CL, yeah, I've looked at the CL so many times. The problem is the lenses for the L-mount system. The only lens that I thought about was the Sigma 18 to 50 f2.8. It's a very small f2.8 lens. I mean, it's, you know, it's still, it's not pancake or kit lens size, but it's pretty small. It's like the size of the Olympus 40 to 150 kit lens. It's about that size. That's pretty decent, and it's lightweight. And that would be great on a Leica CL. So about $600 or $700 for that lens. And then the Leica CL, the problem is the Leica CL has gone up about $700 in price since I first started looking at them. When I first started looking at them, I was like, oh, $1,200, $1,300. Get a true Leica APS-C camera with a Pen F kind of look to it. I should say the Pen F looks more like a Leica 3 than the Leica CL looks like a Pen F. It's a big circle, right? This looks like the Leica 3 looks like the Pen F. The Leica CL looks like the Pen F, but then the Pen F looks more like the Leica. You know what I mean? Anyway, I thought about that, but now Leica CL is like $2,000, $2,100, like $600 or $700 more than it was when I started looking at them last year. So now I'm like, I don't know, but that's me, right? As an everyday camera, I think the Leica CL with the Sigma 18 to 50 f2.8 would be a great everyday camera. I don't know if those are weather sealed or not, but that would be a great everyday camera. Leica CL with the 20, they have a 28 millimeter pancake lens. Great combination because it'll give you like a 40 millimeter equivalent focal length. You get the Leica quality in and out, Leica look, all of that stuff. A true Leica. But now you're getting up to Leica Q pricing, right? Because a Leica Q is about 2,500. A Leica CL with a Leica 28 millimeter, you're talking over $3,000. So why not just get the Leica Q? Why get the Leica CL? So that this is my problem, right? With the Leica CL, is that you can get a Leica Q with the Halo 28 millimeter lens, or you can get a Leica CL with its Halo 28 millimeter lens, but it's going to cost you more than a Leica Q, and a Leica Q is a full frame 24 megapixel sensor. The Leica CL is an APS-C 24 megapixel. Which one would you rather have if all things being equal? But they're not. The Leica Q is only 2,500. So this is the problem, right? With the Leica CL is it's way too much money when compared to the Leica Q. Okay, Leica TL2. I looked at that also. Usability is the issue. It's all touchscreen, right? And again, lenses. You can get a Leica TL2 for between 1,000 and 1,500 in mint condition, right? Silver and black, whatever color. Between 1,000 and 1,500, right in that range. But again, you're running into the, what lens do you put on it? If you put a Leica 28 millimeter on there, you're back up to Leica Q prices. And it doesn't have the same usability as the Leica Q does. Leica Q at least has 5 or 6 buttons on the back, or whatever, 3 or 4. It has enough buttons and dials. The Leica TL is like 1 or 2 on top dials and then touchscreen on the back. Let me just double check. Let me double check pricing there, because I could be talking on my butt. I got to refresh my brain a little bit. TL2. TL2, 25, 23. So it's, you see what I'm saying? 5 grand. TL2 with 2 lenses. TL2. TL2 silver. Man, it's even more expensive than the last time I looked at it. There was a time I could buy this camera for $1,000, a TL2. Now look, 2029, all right? Why in God's name would I do that when I can get a Leica Q? So this is the problem with the Leica APS-C cameras, is they're asking way too much for them when you have to pair it with a lens, because they have the Leica Q out there, the Leica Q2. I mean, you're within spitting distance of a Leica Q2. Leica Q2s are about 4 grand. You get a Leica TL with, see where I'm coming from? So this is my problem. Okay, Drew, we will see you later. And hi, Rob. I recently got the EM1 Mark 1. Hey, John, how are you? I'm really pleased with it. Probably better than a Pen-F. Rear screen just like my Nik Z7 II. Got it just to do macro with the 60, but may get a short zoom. Awesome. Yeah, I've never, I've seen the Mark 1. Nice camera. I have the Mark 2. I like it a lot better, but yeah, Mark 1, when we're talking about just photography, it's awesome. The Mark II steps up the video side, and then it switched to the articulating screen for that reason. But if we're talking about just photography, there's nothing the EM5 Mark II really does that the EM5 Mark I can't do. A sad Casio band. Yeah, I know. They used to have excellent tiny cameras. I love my QVR40 in 2004 and later. The EX, yeah, the Casio Slim, X Slim series. I remember those. Yeah, both very small, fast 2 AA batteries, and they were even smaller. Yep. They still make watches at least, right? What do I got on? Oh, I got a Seiko on today. I have a Casio watch though that I really like. Uh, I'll have to. I've showed it on a stream before years ago, but I'll have to wear that next time. Yeah, no EVF. That's the other deal breaker for me, right? Too many compromises. I could live without an EVF potentially, but then touchscreen only, pricing, add a lens on it. It's like we're like a Q material, right? At this point. Now I'm looking at a Leica Q. Should I just go $2,500 on a Leica Q? Things that make you go, maybe 2,500. You only live once, right? And let's see. Linda says, what keeps me from buying relatively expensive compact like the LX102 are the potential dust issues. Yeah, I've seen that. There's a guy that hooked up a vacuum cleaner to his, and everybody says it works well, sucking the dust out, assuming it hasn't been there too long. I assume if it's been there too long, it gets kind of stuck on there. But some guy showed how to use a vacuum hose, pinch it up against the lens when it's extended, and turn that sucker on and suck all the dust out. And all of the comments under that video were like, yeah, this worked great. So I'm a little less weary of that as I used to be, because I was with you on that, Linda. I was like, ooh, dust. How am I going to clean that? So I started Googling, how do you clean the dust out of an LX100? And this one video came up of a guy using a vacuum cleaner to suck out the dust, and it looked really, it was pretty convincing. So I'm a little less worried about that. And this camera, I haven't tested it, but this one from David has almost 6,000 clicks on it, and I don't see any dust spots. So that's not bad. Now when it gets up to 20 or 30,000, we'll have to see. But if I start to notice any, say, let's say I get one with no dust spots, and then I start to notice some, if I don't let it stay too long, I can probably suck all that dust out. We'll see. Let's see if I get one. I don't know. Leica Q or LX Deluxe 7, because the Deluxe 7 is what, 1,500 bucks? For 1,000 more, I get a Leica Q. See what I mean? See the rabbit hole you can get into when you start looking at this stuff and you got gas? You just start, well, if I'm going to spend 2,500 for a Leica Q, why don't I get the Q2? Because that's about another 1,000, 1,500 more. And hell, man, a Leica Q3 is only 6 grand. Why spend 4,000 when you can get a Leica Q3 for 6 grand? Get a used one for probably 55. And then when you're talking about that, you're like, well, shit, man, I might as well get a Leica M11 with a Summicron 50, you know? Or not even the Summicron, get the whatever, the other high-end one, I forget. Because I'm not really a Leica guy, but you see what I'm saying? And next thing you know, you're walking out and you're, $10,000 in debt with a camera that you're probably too scared to take out in the real world because it's so freaking expensive. I don't know. So I'm thinking like maybe just screw it. I got 2 Pen Fs. One is mint cherry. So if this ever breaks, I have my backup, you know? But and that's purely what it's for, is for backup to this beautiful camera. Oh, hey, John. Good to see you. It's been a while since you've been in a stream. I get it, though. My streams aren't like, they keep changing, right? You never know what I'm going to do. But yeah, it's always good to see you, John. John's a good guy, and he contributes pretty regular to the photo club, on my Flickr page, the photo group, I should call it. I think your rationalization is sound if you, or your credit allow for it. Yeah, I know, right? I appreciate that. There's so many of you that are like, just go for it. You only live once, you know? I feel like a lot of my audience, we're not very pragmatic people sometimes, right? We're more of like, enjoy life. We're just more happy-go-lucky people, Whereas a lot of places, they're so pragmatic and so, like, don't waste your money, do this, get that, don't waste your time with this. We're like, hey, if you like it, just get it. You only live once. Certainly Marco's position, but you're not alone. A lot of people are telling me the same thing. Rob, if it gives you any joy or you like it, just get it, you know? One guy was a little bit more morbid. He was like, look at it this way, Rob. If you only had a month to live, would you buy this camera? Like, well, if I only had a month to live, I don't know what I would do. I'd probably give all my money to my family, but rather than spend it on myself. But I understand his point. Like, really, if nothing else really mattered, would I buy this camera, right? Because by saying that if you're going to die next month, money's not an issue, right? So if you eliminate the fact that if money no object, yeah, I would buy the camera, no question. If you want to cut to the chase, when somebody makes a statement like, if you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do? And then, in the context of buying a camera, basically you're saying if money were no object. That's really another way to say it, right? I use compressed air, slightly pressing the can. Ooh, On what camera? Don't do that directly on your sensor. I've heard that's not good, so I don't do it. We all need a whole lot of Mylanta. What is Mylanta? Let me look that up. I don't know what Mylanta is. Oh, it's antacid. That's funny. Antacid and anti-gas. You're hilarious. OM1 Mark III? Yep, me too. I'm waiting for the Mark III. Or GR4. I'm not big on the GR4 because I know EVF. So we got no EVF, fixed lens. I got mixed feelings. That's 2 strikes. Either one by itself, maybe not a deal breaker. Like S9, interchangeable lens, no EVF. So I'm like, well, maybe I can get by with one without the other. Throw in no hot shoe. It's a cold shoe. It's like, oh, wait. Okay, what else am I limited on? A mechanical shutter. Ooh. Okay. You know, it just starts adding up, right? To a point that, like, what can you live with and without? Like the Leica Q, 28mm f2 lens. Okay, that's big. That's almost like worth 5 points. And then, okay, it's old. 24 megapixels. Yada, yada. Okay. Yeah, Leicas don't depreciate much, so relatively risk-free purchase. I know you could probably sell your Leica for what you paid for it, right, David? David has a Leica. He has a good one. I won't say which, but he has a good one. That's why I should have bought the Leica Deluxe 8. I should have bought it. I regret not buying the Deluxe 8 and selling my S1R. I can buy the S1R now for less than any of the cameras we're talking about here, right? But then I'd have to start buying the lenses. And then it's not an everyday camera. It's a big-ass camera. Have we talked about the Sony A7 series yet? They also have pancake primes and the sensor from the A7R4, R5. Yeah, I did briefly talk about it. Great everyday camera. You put on one of their 2.5 primes. The only weak spot is the usability. It's not quite the handling and the menu system, the overall usability of the camera. It's a little bit of a strike against it. If you can kind of get past those things, then yeah, you're getting a great camera system. It's like $2,000 for the A7C, $3,000 for the A7CR. Kind of getting up there, right? But you know, you're getting what you pay for, honestly, in terms of features and autofocusing. If you prioritize autofocusing. And you know, they're relatively small, compact. It's just when you start adding on the lenses, you have to put the 2.5 lenses on, or you know, if you want a 24-70 f2.8, that I think that's where I left off, was like, oh yeah, what's the smallest 24-70 f2.8 lens you can get for the Sony full frame? They're not very small. I think it's the Tamron, maybe the G2. It's a 28-75. That's close enough. This is where it kind of almost doesn't fit in your glove box. But if you're happy with a prime, you can get their 28mm prime, their 40mm, whatever. I think they have the 20. They don't have the 28. They have a 28 prime, but not a pancake. They have the, I think it's a 24, the 40, and the 50. I think those three. Sorry, I thought I heard something. But they have some nice 2.5G primes for, it's like $600 a pop. So, you know, you can get the A7C Mark II with one of these primes for like $2,800. Kind of a lot of money for an everyday camera, right? Because everyday cameras need to be a little bit more affordable. I mean, you know, I think a little pricey And then the usability. So it's got a couple of strikes, in my opinion, is the pricing and the usability. I think if you want to use if you want to put the A7C in a different category, the A7C Mark II or the A7CR as your only camera, in that category, it scores pretty high. I think, yeah, I wouldn't have any trouble. If somebody said, this is going to be my first camera, my only camera, yeah, I would have no problem recommending A7C Mark II, A7CR. You spend a little more, but these cameras do everything, right? And ergonomically, they're not terrible, but you know, they're usable, right? Put a little grip on the bottom and you're fine. So yeah, I think they're great cameras. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend those as your only camera. Now you got to think about, I should do another video if this was your only camera instead of the everyday camera. I might do that next week. I'll stream next week, your only camera. Because then you have a lot to choose from. And the criteria, I think, is going to be very different than an everyday camera. EP7 with phase detect is all I want in an everyday camera. Yep. No EVF, but IBIS, big plus. Portable, affordable, tilting screen, ton of features, decent menu system, right? Yeah, that would be great. I would like a pen up with, I don't need the phase detect so much in an everyday camera. As an only camera, yeah, I would need phase detect. My only camera, it would have to be an OM1. But as an everyday camera, the OM5 almost qualifies for only camera and everyday camera all together in one. Just has a couple of weak spots as an everyday camera, as an as your only camera, in my opinion. For my use, it could not be my only camera. A slightly shrinked, yeah, a new GX9 would be nice, right? Isn't the GX9 like a shrink GX8? But if they could update the GX9, I could be wrong, but I think that's what you're talking about. Oh, the Leica R6 film camera for about 500 bucks, and a live transfer, you can still take pictures. I think it has. Yeah, the R6 can work full mechanical. I forget what the shutter speed is, but it'll work full mechanical. It was the last one in the SLR series of Leica that were able to work mechanically and could work without a battery, right? You could use those. Basically, you can use it without a battery. So if the electronics completely fail, obviously, you can use it. And the R lenses supposedly are just as good as the M lenses, right? But they're sold substantially for less money. Like the 50mm Summilux, it's like $1,000 or something, right? Where you'd pay 2,000 on the M mount. But you know, whatever those numbers are, it's a substantial difference. Oh, don't worry, Robin, we're fine. Film cameras, I'm not as big on. Film cameras I would buy totally on style. Like I really like the Leica M3, get the double stroke. Maybe an old Canon rangefinder because they're a lot cheaper, but they look like the old Leica 3s. And I like the Olympus EC that I have. Um, that's a beautiful camera. My Leica Pen F film camera back here, also awesome. Awesome. All thanks, David. Just reminds me constantly what a generous person David Tellett has been. I really appreciate it. Home Digital and CP7 orders will resume August 5th. Is that true? I haven't heard that. But I think you were the one we were talking about. Like, you didn't want to pay $500 for an EP7. I was like, that's not bad. I think it's worth $500. Now they're going for $700, $800. It's ridiculous. If you're going to pay $700 or $800 for an EP7, just get a Pen F. I posted one for like $800 on my community tab. If somebody if one of my viewers don't purchase that camera for $800, I put it on my community tab. I'm serious. It's like, where's my mouse? Seriously, this right here. I would look, 47 likes on this, 5 comments. Is it still for sale? It's still for sale. I mean, you know, my mind is blown that nobody has picked this up for $800. I mean, I would buy it, but I have 2 Pen Fs. I don't need another one, right? Of course, now I'm thinking about it. Seriously, I have a problem. Anyway, I don't know. I just can't believe it. I can't believe that that is still for sale. One other person has this in their cart, is what it says, right? They give you all these things. Oh, Ken says the OM3 Ti is yeah, that was a sweet camera. Let me see if those are hard to get though, aren't they? OM3 Ti. Yeah, man. I forget what made those so special, but I remember looking at those once and I was like, man, have they lost their freaking mind? I mean, $2,000 for this one, unused. Okay, well, yeah, 12 to 1,500, 2,200 for a pre-owned one. Oh my God. You're cracking me up. Before ending the stream, I know. Thank God it's Sunday. My local camera store is closed. Otherwise, I'd be down there right now buying a Deluxe 7 for $1,400. Yeah, I bought my Pen F brand new off the shelf when it came out, $1,100. And that's this one, right around September of 2016, I think, or 2017, one of those 2 years. Off the shelf, brand new from my local camera store, $1,100. Whatever the retail price was, it was like 1,100, I think. And I'm still using it to this day. I don't know how many clicks are on it, but a lot. And it's been great. And I bought another one for $650 when they had an outlet sale last year or the year before. You won't find them in the outlet sale anymore. But they had that 20% outlet sale. And it was like 600 and some dollars for a Pen F. So I was lucky and grabbed one instantly. Because as soon as I got the text message that there's an outlet sale going on, man, I was on it like white on rice. And they had a Pen F there and I bought it like that. I should have bought 2. But that's just silly, you know? I don't need 2 Pen Fs. Once this one dies, then the other one, if that other one lasts me like 8 or 9 years and then it dies, It's going to be too late to buy another one at that point, because the electronics will be so old that anything you buy that old electronic is not going to be, it's not a safe bet. Yeah, too bad you can't trade the 90 in for it. I know. Ooh, that's got me thinking. If I trade you my mint Pen F, I got one mint. I don't know how many clicks on it, hardly any. I got a Pen F mint silver. What if I traded that for your 90? I doubt it. If I loved macro, I would do it, but I'm not a big macro lover. So I want to check one thing. Oh wait, David says my only negative of the Q2 is the size. It's a bit, but yeah, it is a little bulky. I get that. But like I said, that lens kind of pulls a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to making a decision, right? Oh, Marco, you demand. Good luck, buddy. I hope you get it. You should be able to offer them like at least 5% below, like, 20 bucks. So make it $7.99. If you go 10% below, that's going to be a tough bite, because eBay raised their fees so much. It's costing like 13% for me to sell something now. I used to be able to sell things on eBay for 2-3%, and it's like 13% now. So I got out of selling stuff on eBay years and years ago. Other than stuff I just have laying around, one or two items, but I was a little bit heavier involved in that like 7 or 8 years ago. Anyway, I would be shocked. I just can't believe nobody's buying that for 800 bucks. I mean, come on. That's a good deal. I mean, the thumb grip is missing. I think I talked about that, and they show it in their pictures, but I just used Sugru. My thumb grip came off too, right? I just used some Sugru and made my own thumb grip. Made a better thumb grip. It's thicker. It's thicker, so I have more grip. Yeah, or you can just buy another thumb grip, right? But if you want to get all, ghetto about it, you can do like I did and just put Sugru. See if it'll, yeah. See, that's the, and mine is, it's thicker. Yeah, Sugru. It's like a clay, but it gets hard. Yeah, man, this stuff. It's like a putty, but it's rubberized. It feels like a hard rubber once it dries up, and it's awesome. And it doesn't come off, man. It's solid. Ah. And John says, I hope you and Rob never end up in the same room with a computer looking for you. Oh my God, Marco. You should join me in a live stream. We could be side by side. We're going to do Shop with Rob and Marco live. Oh my God. It would be hilarious for the people that know us. I don't know if anybody else would watch, but I think it would be a blast. We'll have to do that one day. We can shop camera gear, computers, whatever. Computers are just as bad. You can buy so many things for a computer. Thank God I'm not into that, man. I'd be here, it's bad enough I got this LED keyboard that lights up. It's all wood. Um, it's got backlit keys on it. I love this keyboard. Uh, but they got some really fancy keyboards out there now. I kind of went, well, I didn't actually buy this for myself. I bought this for my dad for his birthday one year, and he passed away a few years ago, so now I use it. But I really liked it when I got it for him. I almost got one for myself. But here it is. Yeah, Marco, you're a bad influence. Because you got the OM1 Mark II, you got the OM5. You know, earlier on in my YouTube career, I probably would have bought those cameras because I was really into Olympus and OM systems. And I still am in every way. But I don't know, I've kind of looked into other systems and now my money's gone. Ugh, I don't know. I might get a Mark II. I came this close to an OM5 the other day with the 12 to 45 because I want the lens more than the camera. But if I can get the camera and the lens together for like 1,100 bucks, I forget where I saw it. Like 1,100 bucks for the pair. I was like, that's like, you know, if you look at retail, that's a killer deal. It's like half off. But if you look at it from normal sale prices, that's still like $300 cheaper than like some of the best sales you'll ever get. Oh, I know. Oh, you wanted a Commodore 64 modern. Oh my God, I still have my Commodore 64. Spring clicks when you type. Yeah. I just love working a deal in Marketplace. You'd be shocked at how many lenses I essentially got for free, and I always trade old stuff and stuff. I've never used the Marketplace. Of course, I'm a little bit leery of using it. I'm always afraid of getting scammed. My sister likes it though. I don't know. I'm not a wheeler dealer really, like online. Like if Amazon has a deal going on and I can find a good deal, I'm good at finding good deals on like Amazon and maybe a couple other places, but Marketplace is something I've never worked. It's just so many scams. It's enough scams on Amazon, never mind. Yes, I do trust this. I've bought a few things from them. Never had an issue. Like one time I bought a um what did I buy? I bought an old 4/3 camera. I think it was the E500. And the charger that came with it didn't work. So they sent me a new charger like the next day, you know, after I let them know. And then I got in a couple days after that. So yeah, they're really nice people to work with. Yeah, wait for the yeah, I'm gonna wait for the Mark III. I mean, I've waited this long, right? The Mark II's been out since February, so it's been a few months and I haven't bought it, so I think I can wait. And I look at the images I took yesterday in the park with all those birds, and I'm like, I don't know if I would do any better with a Mark II. Maybe a little, but $2,000 better? I don't know. Yeah, I think I saw that too. You know, that's not bad, but you know, if you're gonna buy a Pen F, I feel like you should try to get one that's in good a condition at as good a deal as you can. Having a Pen F for a Pen F's sake, like mine is probably scuffed up. This is probably a $500 or $600 Pen F. If I were to try to sell it, I will never sell it, but if I did, it's got enough scuffs and dings in it. But it's like buying the the LX100 Mark II or the Deluxe 7. I don't want to buy one like cheap because I did find a couple of deals like that. An LX100 Mark II for like 600 bucks, kind of like this Pen F, but it was kind of beat up. And I'm like, then it's probably gonna have dust on the sensor and all kinds of other crap, right? So I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, my God, I think I've been on here for 3 hours, so I'm gonna go. You guys, thanks so much for watching and being here with me today, listening to me jibber jabber. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I know I certainly did. It's always great hanging out with everyone. And if you enjoy these chats and want to support the channel and hang out, you can buy me a coffee, make a donation. They're always greatly appreciated. But you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll be back on Tuesday for the photo editing live stream. Um, if I'm still awake, maybe I'll do a shopping with Rob Trek later tonight. So we'll see you guys again at least Tuesday, if not sooner. Thanks again for being here.